Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained part 2 by Bricky. Yes guys, obviously we checked out part 1 when it came out. What was that, about 2 months ago now at this point? And I have to give props to Bricky right away for this series in general and for his original as well. For those of you who have been watching the channel for quite a bit now, you'll know that that was one of the very first more popular series on my channel, was Bricky's original faction explained videos. Which he did a phenomenal job on back in the day, and him remaking these videos kind of with more knowledge that he's gained over the years. I think he's done a phenomenal job on it so far. Part 1 was great, and I know the length, you know, the most I've ever done is about 10 minutes, 15 minutes in terms of a video with narration work, you know, narrative work, with illustrations in the background and that so I can understand the work it would take to make an hour-and-a-half long video. So big props to him for making this type of content for us to enjoy, because he does a phenomenal job on it. He does a great job of mixing the lore in a comedic way. It makes it very digestible for especially newer people to get into the hobby and be entertained by it, and that was one of the reasons why I got into Warhammer to begin with, to be honest with you, was his initial videos. They interested me. They made me want to learn more about the setting, and obviously they're a good stepping stone for some of the deeper lore videos that you can get into from Luton or whatever have you, right? Whatever Baltimore, whatever other lore tubers that you choose to view, right? But yeah, this is such a great stepping stone, so phenomenal job by Bricky for that. Just wanted to give him a shout out there. But yeah, guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like, subscribe for more content from me, and of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Big shout out to all of our members, all of our Hastati, and our Principes, Dagenhart, and Hobbit, and our Prefect, of course, Fear. I appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day, of course. And with that, guys, I said we get right into this video. Part 2. I'm trying to remember where we left off. I know we did, we covered most of the Imperium of Man in part 1 there. So I'm assuming this is going to be a lot more of the Xenos races, heretic forces in this video, but let's see for sure. So yes, guys, let's make sure captions are on. Quality is good. Quality's great. Let's get into this. Every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained, part 2. Let's get it.
This video is part 2 in a 2-part series on every faction re-explained. If you've not seen part 1, you were either snatched by the YouTube algorithm, or you don't let anything, not even common sense, hold you back. And for that, well, I wish I could be that strong.
That's amazing.
The quest to find the Primarchs was expansive and treacherous, to the point where they really should write a book about it. Despite never seeing the Emperor before in their lives, the Primarchs all instinctively knew who the Emperor was. Whether it's his psychic connection to him or just plain old intuition, the giant golden god is a bit of a giveaway. The Primarchs all lived their own lives, and some lived substantially better lives than others. Rabute Gilliman of the Ultramarines rose through the ranks of his worlds and ended up turning an entire sector into a high-functioning society, where others, like Mortarion, lived on the poisonous hellscape of Barbarous under the boot heel of his own adopted father.
Obviously, we have learned throughout that, you know, some Primarchs definitely had it a lot easier than others. You know, if you compare, Kurs to Sanguinius, you know, obviously one's worse than the other. Both kind of bad, but if you, you know, compare, Magnus to, Sanguinius, there's different tiers to it, to the badness, that's for sure. There's obviously, you know, a lot of different Primarchs to go through. Each had a vastly different life experience, and man, some were pretty horrific. Kurs had it pretty bad, I'll be honest, but Kurs was also just kind of a psychopath, so it's hard to say.
On the poisonous hellscape of Barbarous under the boot heel of his own adopted father. When the Emperor arrived, some wanted to play a little bit of catch with their dad at first, and some didn't trust the baseball bat he was carrying, and some didn't want to play at all. Eventually, one by
That's a good
one,
way to put it.
The Emperor returned his sons to his side to bring them back together as one happy family. A family who needed a good cleaning. Are you tired of boring old soap? Is your son the foulest being ever? Do your eyes sting when he comes near? Well, clean that man back up with the power of Cheeky. That's right, the brand new moisturizing bar soap brought to you by Moist Critical and Bricky approved. Noble hates it.
I've never heard of this.
Love it. Bar soap is always so sticky and has a ton of fuss.
They made their own soap? What the hell?
Glowing to the surprise of Lehman Russ. Cheeky soap is so good, we didn't even take a down payment for the sponsor. That's right. We love this soap so much, we are operating on 100% commission. We are supported purely and only by those of you who buy Cheeky. It is the best bar soap we have ever used. That is not a hyperbole. Your satisfaction is guaranteed.
Holy.
Take it from the man himself.
Bricky's right. It's very good.
Enjoy a multitude of flavors, including
Okay.
lo-fi lavender.
Correct. Thank you, Moist Critical.
Soap,
Holy
lush
shit.
grass, and absolute cinnamon. Cheeky alone has made me swap back to bar
That sounds like
soap
some good
as my
flavors,
primary
though.
choice. No more liquid soap for this brick. Cheeky is the play.
What do you guys think? Honest question here. What do you guys think about liquid soap? I usually use liquid soap. I've never like used bar soap before, but I hear a lot of people say that it's better. You know what I'm saying? That they just prefer it, kind of thing. I don't know. I've never tried it before. What do you guys think? Like honestly, like I don't know. I might give this a shot. Honestly, see how much it is. Cause goddamn. I mean, they're saying it's good. It's got to be good, right? Well, that's how it works. Oh,
no more liquid soap for this brick. Cheeky is the play. Go ahead and go to usecheeky.com/Bricky or code Bricky for 10% off your purchase and domestically support these videos. That's
10% off. Use code Bricky if you plan on using or buying their soap. Cheeky. Use code Bricky. 10% off.
Code Bricky at usecheeky.com/Bricky or click the link in the description to learn more. Get clean now. Oh yeah, so half his sons turned on him. After
Yeah,
the
true.
Emperor was able to bring
Just
all
picking
of
up
his
like
sons
that.
back
Awesome.
into the fold again, he sent them on their way with his end goal in mind. Reclaiming the lost worlds of humanity. Each of his Primarchs fanned out across the galaxy to accomplish this goal, but the one they were expected to report to was his favored son, and the first one found, allegedly, which was Horus. Horus was granted the title of War Master, and he certainly lived up to Big E's expectations, which were very specific and set by Big E himself to all of his sons. However,
Horus was definitely, you know, we obviously he's the favored child, right? And we'd recently checked out his video on the channel there. Go check that out if you haven't. Obviously, we streamed it. That was a great video. Horus's story is very convoluted. Obviously, I don't want to, you know, spoil it, and I don't want to, you know, get too much into it because obviously I'm sure he's going to maybe talk about it a little bit, at least in the intro here. But no, Horus, what a you know. Arrogant guy, you know what I'm saying? Like very charismatic, but he just suffers from like that small dick syndrome, you know. Largely that's what it is, unfortunately, you know. He had so many warnings, so many chances to turn it around, and he just didn't take them. And I get from his perspective how difficult things looked, but damn, you know, it's just sucks to see.
Were very specific.
Go check out his video if you haven't.
He himself to all of his sons. However, either intentionally or not, the Emperor did not mention to his sons some of the more chaotic aspects of the galaxy. Horus himself, while in the process of reclaiming a more advanced human world, was informed of the existence of chaos gods, a factoid that Horus initially did not believe. To him, it was a bit unfathomable to think that his father would emit such significant information on the inner workings of the galaxy.
Yeah, why would the Emperor
he soon realized
not
this
say
was
that?
the truth, and this betrayal was unacceptable. With the astronomical weight put on his shoulders and his father immediately leaving it all in his hands, combined with the slow corruption of his mind by those closest to him, he began to change his tune. Horus began amassing a following behind his father's back with several other Primarchs and began to formulate plans to usurp him from his throne on Terra. While this was occurring,
I'll say props to Bricky again for this so far. Like, he's explaining this in a very like quick way, but it's basically a sum up, and he's doing a very good job of it. He's hitting all the major points, hitting all the major checks basically, and he's doing it in a concise way, still with that element of humor on occasion, but he's getting the lore across in a very good way. Obviously, in his first videos, I know that was one of the bigger criticisms, not like bad, but one of the criticisms of his original series was that he kind of like omitted a lot of details, didn't really get like the full extent across. I have to say he does a much better job in these in the re-explained videos so far. He does a very good job of it, getting the point across, keeping it light, but also getting it to you, not like omitting certain details, you know, omitting details where it's like you should go learn about it yourself kind of thing. Go deep in, go delve into it a little deeper, you know. Otherwise, he's doing a pretty good job so far.
And began to formulate plans to usurp him from his throne on Terra. While this was occurring, Magnus the Red tried to FaceTime his dad back on Terra.
Oh, FaceTime his dad.
In the shattering of the protective barrier between Terra and the demons of the warp. Due to this
very nuanced situation, that I will say.
On the Golden Throne to assure that it would continue to function. Ultimately, half of the Primarchs would fall to chaos, and the remaining half would fight back viciously against their brothers. Horus eventually gained the upper hand and arrived in orbit above Terra itself, and after antagonizing his father enough, the Emperor temporarily removed himself from the throne, strategically putting his old friend there as a seat warmer, and went to confront Horus himself on the vengeful
Malcador
flagship. The Emperor faced down his son, and after a heated battle and
I like how Malcador got fucking reserved to a seat warmer there. I mean, pretty much, it's not wrong. Obviously, a bit of an oversimplification of what Malcador was exactly, but for the time being, yeah, that it's not wrong, not incorrect. Here, he says, take the throne for a time. I'll be back. You know what I'm saying? Except he's gonna get disintegrated when he gets back, you know, or during the time it takes for him to get back. Goddamn.
His flagship. The Emperor faced down his son, and after a heated battle and 64 novels, the Emperor managed to obliterate Horus on a subatomic level, but not before his favorite son was able
64
to
novels is crazy.
wound the Emperor. As the dust settled and the traitors fled from Terra, the Emperor's body was dragged back onto the Golden Throne, where it sits permanently to assure that it continues to function. A corpse forced to constantly hold back the horrors of the warp and guide humanity with his pale light. And that light is flickering. From there, the remaining members of the traitors to the Emperor fled to their respective safe havens. These are the veterans of the Long War, the spiteful, and to them, the wronged. Those who would let the galaxy burn if it means the Imperium gets caught in the flames. These are the
Chaos Space Marines. All right, yeah, starting off strong, obviously. Yeah, let's see, first chapter here, Chaos Space Marines, yeah. Definitely good that we're getting a little bit of insight into them for sure. And again, I'm pretty sure the first episode was a lot of the Imperium units, or like chapters, I should say, sub-factions within the Imperium, I should say. If I recall, it was 2 months ago. It was a while. I might need a little refresher on that now. But no, obviously, yeah, the Chaos Space Marines, a lot to say about them. Lots of different Primarchs obviously went traitor, half of them to be exact, right? So I'm interested to see what he's going to say about them. There's obviously a lot to go off of there. And this is a big chapter too, by the looks of it.
And what are the achievements of your fragile Imperium? It is a corpse rotting slowly from within while maggots writhe in its belly. It was built with the toil of heroes and giants, and now it is inhabited by frightened weaklings to whom the glories of those times are half-forgotten legends.
Damn.
I have forgotten nothing, and my wisdom has expanded far beyond mere mortal frailties. The Horus Heresy saw the collapse of the Imperium as we knew it at the time, and
definitely,
half of the Space Marine legions fell to the ruinous powers. Though the favored son, War Master Horus, was killed and the rebellion ended, the heretical forces retreated to the warp and remain a constant threat to this day. The twisted reminder of what the temptations of the warp may bring, the Chaos Space Marines act as a mirror.
They do look badass.
Legions, and as time progresses, their warp taint further changes them to suit the needs of their patron deity. Though marred and absolutely mangled by the ruinous powers, they are still unmistakably Space Marines in stature and shape, and according to them, they have never been more free. After the heresy, the loyal legion.
I will say too, yeah, like that's the confusing part for like the average Imperium soldier when they see a Space Marine, is the fact that they're so goddamn rare. You don't know what a loyalist Space Marine looks like anymore. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what a Chaos Space Marine looks like. So I know there's instances out there where it's like They see drop pods drop down, drop pods open. They don't start firing because they think, oh, it's his angels, you know. Wrong color of power armor, you know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, fucking they're getting obliterated by Chaos Space Marines, you know. It's crazy shit. And some of them are more malformed than others, is what I will say. Obviously, they're not all malformed to the same degree. Some look relatively still just like Space Marines, but you know, they're less tainted in a sense, you know. But then there's some where it's like, holy shit, yeah, that doesn't look right at all, you know what I'm saying? Some are a lot more obvious, I will say.
They have never been more free. After the heresy, the loyal legions of Space Marines became very strict in their organization, and their separation into separate chapters with capped numbers and other formalities was done to prevent any form of heresy from happening again.
True.
The Chaos Space Marines are a bit different. Ultimately, these Marines are subject to the primary legions that fell to Chaos in the first place. The majority of these legions, the Black Legion, the Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and the Night Lords, are supporters of Chaos undivided, either enjoying the powers of all Chaos gods or sometimes shunning them altogether. But a few of them follow a very specific Chaos god. Thousand Sons are followers of Tzeentch, the Death Guard follows Nurgle, Slaanesh has their claws in the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters are avid followers of Khorne.
I really like that he like specifically said which chapters, like, or what legions, I guess, kind of have like a patron deity and which ones are Chaos Undivided, because that was a question I had initially for quite a while was, you know, are they all like Chaos Undivided? Do some of them have certain patron deities? I found that kind of confusing at the start, so it's very cool that he clarified on that like right away. That's good shit for sure.
Has their claws in the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters are avid followers of Khorne. From there, the legions themselves are separated into roaming war bands that may go under their own unique names or may stake a claim to one of the primary legions. Most of the gear and armor of a Chaos Space Marine remains the same, but stylistically it changes quite a bit to reflect the intention of the legion or their patron god. The Death Guard's armor has become rotted and full of gaping mouths.
Disgusting looking. Yeah.
The World Eater's sharp and violent armor reflects their bloodthirst, and the chaotic noise of the Emperor's Children armor, nipple rings included, pleases Slaanesh greatly. Due to the taint of Chaos,
yeah, Slaanesh loves their nipple rings, apparently.
Less about plating and more about a new skin for any given Chaos Space Marine. Though the Chaos Space Marines have no true fear of death or numbers diminishing, there are still major recruitment efforts for their legions. However, the conscription of these recruits is a lot more chaos-fueled and is more of a forced assimilation.
Yeah.
And in some instances, breeding. The organ implementations and other modifications are the same. And
wait a second, was that the...
Breeding.
Demoncuba. Oh, some of you guys have mentioned that to me a little bit and mentioned I should look into that, but I'm a little afraid to, goddamn. And now that he mentions that, and the terrible, no good, very bad, fucked up fantasy with sci-fi elements. Oh god. Cult of Lore, the podcast.
The organ implementations and other modifications.
Should I look into that more?
The necessity of a gene seed.
Is the YouTube safe?
But the result is a hell of a lot different. Understanding Chaos Space Marines is a difficult exercise. If we took my original video 5 years back and looked at the Imperial Knights section, it mainly focuses on big stompy robots. Now that I understand more, I can discuss the Code Chivalric, the Throne Mechanicum, Squires, and Monarchs, and bring some more context to it all. To assume Chaos Space Marines are simply the opposite side of Space Marines would be foolish. For
it is cool to see how far Bricky has come with his knowledge as well.
A context always needed. Horus himself turned through an overwhelming weight on his shoulders and lies told by his father. But what of Angron? Angron lived as a slave gladiator for his planet's masters, who took Dark Age technology and shoved it into his brain, so experiencing any emotion other than rage was agony for him. He finally leads a revolt for
Angron had it pretty tough, to be fair.
Frees himself from the confines of servitude. The Emperor finds him and says he will take him home, but Angron refuses. He will fight with his friends against the tyranny of his slave owners to the last. At the final last stand with him and his closest friends, slave gladiators, all of them outnumbered and on the verge of death, the Emperor forcefully teleports Angron to his flagship and none of his compatriots, leaving Angron to live and watch all of his friends die.
That was very fucked up. I think Angron was the very first like stream we had on the channel, checking out a video as a stream, and the story of that was pretty fucked up. Yeah, like the Emperor could have solved a lot of problems if he just teleported him and his boys up at the same time instead of just Angron, because that just left like Angron super salty out the gate, so angry out the gate. And like it could have all been avoided, unless it was on purpose, of course. Unless it was on purpose, who knows?
Patriots, leaving Angron to live and watch all of his friends die. You kept that mule core Pharaoh. Russ kept his kin friends. The Lion kept
exactly
humans, brothers, and foster fathers.
Exactly.
Saved and raised into Legion ranks. But not me. Not Angron, no. Did the Emperor teleport his gold-wrapped custodians down to help me in my army? No. Did he free the Warhounds and order them to battle, fight alongside me? No. Did he save my brothers and sisters the way he spared and honored the Lion's kin, the way he honored Corferon? No, no, and no. No mercy for Angron, Angron the Oathbreaker, Angron the Betrayer. Conrad Kurz lived as a lonely boy, scrounging the dregs of a hive city plagued by constant visions of an assassin sent to murder him by his own father. Lorgar was born on a world of chaos worshippers with abusive parents, and the Emperor decided the best way to reprimand him was destroy his holy city. The Emperor,
well, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but yes,
suppressed Magnus at every turn. The question isn't why the Primarchs rebelled. The question is why.
Magnus arguably, out of all of them, Magnus didn't have the intention to be a traitor. He actually actively was trying to stop Horus from going traitor. It's just he fucked up, you know what I'm saying? He let his arrogance get too far ahead of him as well, just in a different way. And obviously not being privy to the knowledge of the Emperor, what was going on back on Holy Terra, he ended up fucking up a lot of shit. But of course, I'm gonna try to look at this, try to look at this from a perspective of I don't know a whole lot, even though we've obviously checked that stuff out. This is explaining it for the first time, so I'm not trying to for anyone who doesn't know and is watching this along with me kind of for the first time, something like that, obviously go check out Bricky's video. It's going to be in the description as well, but I'm not trying to give too many spoilers, I guess. Go check that out for yourself, kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, Magnus, I don't know. I feel bad for Magnus, genuinely, and Angron, in ways. Angron definitely made mistakes, but it wasn't his fault. You know what I'm saying? He got abused, definitely. And what happened to him, getting that technology put into his brain, making any feeling besides rage, agony, and then just the way he got taken from his people. Yeah, there's so much nuance behind it all. Definitely have to check it out if you don't know anything about Warhammer. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to know a lot about Warhammer, but for anyone who doesn't know it and is checking it out for the first time, goddamn, there's so much there, go check it out.
The question isn't why the Primarchs rebelled. The question is, why didn't they sooner? To them, they are not the betrayers. They are the betrayed. They were under the boot of a golden tyrant, and they finally could be free from his heel. Of course, things have changed a lot since the heresy, and the Primarchs of the Chaos Space Marines that have survived the fall are a twisted variant of what they used to be. They have all, for the most part, ascended to the position of Demon Prince and act as a direct connection between their god and their legion. However, due to the nature of the transformation and dedication to a particular chaos god, their actions tend to be separate from their legion's actions. Fulgrim, for example, is so infatuated with being a Demon Prince of Slaanesh that he is at times far too focused on his own personal perfection as opposed to conquest and sitting around like Frankfurter on his throne. Meanwhile, Lorgar is
if you have a throne, you gotta use it. Come on now.
The most adamant against the temptations of the Chaos Gods, Perturabo, was even made a Demon Prince as a reward for being the one who did the most work on the group project. Chaos Space Marines are a fascinating faction because there is a great
Perturabo W
dissonance that is represented in them. Depending on which faction you follow, your devotion to chaos is a sliding scale, and their representation in the universe is so varied. Some are there to reap a high tally of kills for their patron deity, while others are there purely to destroy the Imperium who wronged them. Some are there to torture and maim, and some are there to conquest and conquer. There is no unifying glue. They fight each other as much as they fight everyone else.
That's also true.
Their machinations are entirely up to their warband.
That's another thing that I didn't really like know, obviously getting into Warhammer, was like chaos. Like you hear of it as like almost one entity, but there's so much going on within the realms of chaos. Obviously you have 4 main deities, right? But they're not all, they don't have the same like wants, the same desires, the same intentions for the universe or for each other, right? So inner conflict happens all the time within the warp between the chaos gods as well. That's something I didn't really know either, so it's good that he's touching on that as well. That's very good stuff right there.
For as much as they fight everyone else,
makes it a lot more clear, a lot more concise. It's doing a good job on this.
We've all walked different paths, but together we have come to the same destination. The Emperor has failed us. The Imperium has failed us.
Good to show that they all have different motivations.
It has failed us by the laxity of its laws, the decadence of its culture, and in the injustices heaped upon those of us who serve the most loyally. It has failed us by never recognizing our virtues, never rewarding us for the blood we shed and bringing about its ascendancy, and never providing unity when we needed it most. It has failed us by being flawed to its core, imperfect in its pursuit of a perfect culture, and in its weakness against the encroachment of Xenos breeds that seek to twist humanity to alien ends. And it has failed us, most of all, by being founded upon lies. The Imperium is forged by a dangerous deceit and erodes us all by demanding we sacrifice truth on the altar of necessity. This is an empire propagated by sin that deserves to die. And here on Istvan 5, we begin the purge. From these ashes shall rise the new kingdom of mankind, an imperium of justice, faith, and enlightenment, an imperium heralded, commanded, and protected by the avatars of the gods themselves, an empire strong enough to stand through a future of blood and fire. Naturally,
well, that obviously didn't go so well.
As I have said before, Space Marines do not make up.
That was a good quote, though. And obviously showing that off right before Istvan 5, you know, Istvan 5, you know, if you know, the whole Istvan system in general, what happened there was, you know, pretty fucked up, as, you know, the easiest way to put it, you know, mass casualties, mostly on one side, again, if you know, but, man, again, like the fact that each Primarch, each Chaos Primarch, each Traitor Primarch, serves a different god too, like, I just think that's so interesting, because it's like, you know, again, I never knew it going into it, right? Going into Warhammer. But again, I just want to touch on it too. Like the motivations behind the Chaos Gods can be so benign. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's awesome how much more in Warhammer there is going on than that initially meets the eye. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always like the blanket level, like you're learning it for the first time. This is how it seems. But there's always like a step deeper with Warhammer is what I've always noticed. It always goes a step deeper, and then you're like, oh, and it makes you rethink like the whole situation, kind of just how exactly it's dealt with. Now, chaos is always going to be bad, but the motivations for the Primarchs, you know, and some of them got straight up duped too into like, you know, becoming, you know, demon princes and stuff like that too. So like their motivations are entirely different, especially now in the modern 40k setting. I don't think they're unified to any degree, really, are they? Like they're still very much their own independent thing, fighting for control where they can get it. So it'd be scary if chaos ever once again unified. And I know we kind of saw that with Abaddon in a way, but during the Black Crusades, but it still very much wasn't all the forces of chaos brought back together into the fold. If ever that did happen, that'd be some scary shit, man.
However, as I have said before, Space Marines do not make up the bulk of the fighting force in the Imperium, so it would be ludicrous for me to not mention their dark cousins. The Code Chivalry is the sign of the power of the Imperial Knights. But what about the
Dark Mechanicum? Music goes very hard.
Claimed during the Horus Heresy extended beyond just the Space Marines and the Primarchs. Mars itself was subject to a revolution that saw half of them fall to chaos as well.
Yeah.
And some of the once loyal houses saw themselves...
I would say the Dark Mechanicum, that's something I really don't know a whole lot about. I've had some questions on the Dark Mechanicum before, but I don't know much about them. I know half of Mars are vaulted, but I feel like it's something that isn't really touched on a lot in like the mainstream kind of lore, at least. But no, I'd love to learn a little bit more about the Dark Mechanicum. I already think the the regular Mechanicum are pretty icky. I feel like, they do a lot of like snake-like shit. I've talked about that before, my feelings on them, just the way that they are, the way that they deal with like the Imperium at large. They're very intrigue-based seemingly, but they're also very upfront and uncaring, very calculating, cold. I don't know. And just like the shit that they do, obviously they're responsible for some of the most horrendous shit in the Imperium as it stands. So it's like, damn, I've never been a fan, but to learn a little bit more about the Dark Mechanicum, I'd love to. So let's see what Bricky has to say here. They're one of the factions I really don't know much about, so I'm, definitely going to keep my ears open on this one for sure.
Half of them fall to chaos as well, and some of the once loyal knight houses saw themselves swearing fealty to the dark gods. The falling of these factions allows for the war machine of chaos to continue uninterrupted and to have firepower equal to that of the Imperium itself. The Dark Mechanicum, as the name suggests, is the chaos-affiliated branch of the Mechanicus, and have a lot more free reign.
Hard to tell the difference, am I right?
Of the Chaos Space Marines. The seeds of the Dark Mechanicum were planted fairly early due to some of the Mechanicum not really seeing the Emperor as the Omnissiah immediately, and of course exploited this to allow the schism to happen a bit more naturally. Unlike their Imperial brothers, the Dark Mechanicum have the ability to invent and innovate.
Crazy.
Also utilizing forbidden
Isn't that insane?
Such as the Silica Animus or AI. The Dark Mechanicum do have their own desires to find lost technologies and put them to use, but they're more interested in taking ancient and forbidden technology from Imperial worlds and activating them for their own purposes. Because what good is a bunch of knob and tube wiring if you don't overload it with as many extension cords as possible? However, instead of being clear-cut and more generalized creations, the inventions of the Dark Mechanicum are inherently tied with the warp and its demons. Genetic experimentation and modification, the fusion of...
So it's not just like it's good inventions, it's actually just like crazy like warp fueled like inventions as well. It's not just like, oh my god, we're gonna actually like invent like penicillin, oh my god, sedatives, anything to make like daily life better. No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna invent shit to bring demons into the world. Fuck yeah. Could you imagine if the Dark Mechanicum was actually just like the Mechanicum, but like, they innovated for the better of mankind and that's what made them dark? That'd be some shit, wouldn't it? No, of course not. Damn.
The warp and its demons. Genetic experimentation and modification, the fusion of man and machine are exceptionally common, and no creation is more reflective of this than the demon engines. Instead of
demon engines
vehicles, the demon engines are machines bound with the presence of demons to make them living war machines.
Damn, I've not heard of these.
The vehicles of the Imperium, where a Mechanicus priest may be there to aid in its repair, a warpsmith sorcerer is there to essentially repair and irritate the demon engine so that it can be a more effective killing machine. In certain factions, like the bitter and siege-loving
do they look like
warriors,
typical tanks?
They will lure demons with the promise of glory and easy bloodletting, only to then forcibly trap them into these demonic engines to use as weapons of war against the Imperium. Some lesser gods like
I knew the Iron Warriors did something to that degree, but damn, I didn't know they like straight up like trap like demons into giant war machines like that. So does it vary, I guess, based on the demon's soul or the demon's presence, I suppose, what kind of machine that they can be forced into, made to control? Because I'm assuming like some weak sauce demon isn't going to be controlling like a Titan or something to that degree, like something that size, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'll have to look a little bit more into that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
To use as weapons of
seems like it could be very, very OP. That's for sure.
Some lesser gods like Vashtor the Archifane is also a contract and arms dealer for the demonic stuff that comes out of chaos. Many demons may sign a pact with Vashtor in the soul forges of the warp, and in doing so are given the weapons of war to kill as much as they can. Should they do so, excellent, you may keep it. Should you not, I hope you enjoy your soul soul working in the forges for all eternity.
God damn.
What you signed with blood and oil. In addition, much like their ties in the
if you did good, you can keep it though. That's pretty good.
And the Chaos Knight houses are deeply intertwined. There were,
it's like debt, you know what I'm saying?
That swore fealty and bent the knee to War Master Horus during the heresy, but a good portion of them had no choice, as they were absorbed by warp storms and corrupted into compliance. Many of these Chaos Knights reflect the very early Dark Age technology knights with
that looks badass.
Weapons. The Throne Mechanicum, which once had a noble sitting and taking control of generations of previous drivers and taming a beast, is now a saddle to a monstrosity of wrath and hatred. The nobles of the Chaos Knights fight to aggravate and bring the machine to their will while combating the corrupted minds of their fallen ancestors. Some of these nobles may do such a good job that they themselves fuse into the throne itself and become one with the knight. If a noble dies, no worries at all. Unlike the Imperial ones that require a pilot, a demon can hop into the cockpit and control it instead. The Night Worlds also see full corruption as well. Where there were once peasants, there are now...
I must assume too, it'd be a lot easier for a demon to kind of link with the machine spirit as well. Probably a lot more like, you know, apt to do it, you know, because obviously the human mind is a fickle thing. If it's not strong enough, if you're not mentally fortuitous enough, you're just going to stroke out when they plug you into that machine. I know you got to spend a full night in there, you know, with it to link with it initially. I assume a demon could probably do that way, way easier. Goddamn.
Worlds also see full corruption as well. Where there were once peasants, there are now cultists. And the goal of the Chaos Knights are just as chaotic as the gods they follow. Some are sent to war by the ruinous powers. Others may protect Dark Mechanicum Forge worlds, and others still may be so hyped up on the ruinous powers that they are just aimless and reckless, hoping to unravel the fabric of the universe itself.
That's another thing too. Do the Dark Mechanicum have a presence in the universe, or do they exist only in the Immaterium? Because I know he just said, like, you know, they have Forge worlds. So do they actually have like physical worlds still controlled by the Dark Imperium, even in the modern 40k setting? God damn. Because if they do, that's fucked up. Like, they still have like a presence within the galaxy. They gotta go purge that shit. Go burn it right away. Get in there. Obviously, it'd be very, very hard though. Like, look at the shit that the Dark Mechanicum could potentially push out. You know, this is not some easy pushover equipment or arms. You know, it's the Mechanicum but better, and we already see what the Imperium can field. So goddamn, you know. I assume it wouldn't be easy, but that's got to be like priority number one, right? Get rid of those worlds.
They are just aimless and reckless, hoping to unravel the fabric of the universe itself. Though the aspect of nobility is still there with the Chaos Knight, but it's hardly the same as it is on the Imperial side. As opposed to a beautiful knightly stallion, the knights here are horrifying and unpredictable monstrosities, fueled in part by the agony of the memories of the ancestors trapped within. An invasion by a house of hardly the same as memories of the ancestors trapped within. An invasion
that fucked me up.
Is a horrifying thing.
Those Discord noises are fucking me up.
How do knights enter the battlefield? Normally they can be deployed via dropships, the standard way, but Imperial knights can be deployed with a drop keep. A gigantic knight keep with like towers and stuff will hurtle towards the surface like a drop pod and be slammed into the ground with an excessively thunderous crash. Then, massive drawbridges slam down, banners unfurl, and huge horns play the song of their people as these lumbering robots charge out of their, again, drop keep to fight for the Imperium. So imagine—
I never knew they had drop keeps. That's awful fucked up. I obviously have heard of drop pods, but a drop keep? Damn, do the regular night houses have that as well? Do they straight up just drop out of like keeps like that? Like, what are the sizes of these things? Like, exactly, are we talking like, you know, like the size of a medieval keep, or like what is the actual size? I assume they got to be bigger to be able to hold like knights of that size, right? Like, holy shit. God damn, I gotta look into more of that.
To fight for the Imperium.
I find the knights super interesting in 40k.
Version of this could look like.
So yeah, the regular ones do that.
If you
so
get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
I see. God damn.
Chaos Knights have such a presence, the warp fluctuates in their tread. They bring doom, dread, and despair across the battlefield. Warp storms occur overhead, and psychic phenomenon cling to them. A Chaos Knight will arrive either in some warp-debased platform, or perhaps a portal itself, or climb out of a pool of blood. As the air gets heavy, the enemy feels a crippling sense of paranoia, and the sky begins to rain blood, acid, and God knows what else. The horrors of the warp have resulted in a dramatic change in technology in the favor of their forces. Though in practice, it is a horror beyond comprehension, their baseline desires don't seem that radical on paper. They are creative builders, working to innovate and improve technology while utilizing.
Well, there's still the Mechanicum, so I don't know about that. That's for sure.
Looking at the dark forces of chaos and the Emperor now on his golden throne, humanity is fractured. The Emperor himself is the guiding light for warp travel for humanity, and in being that exists as a beacon for the entire species. Without him, things would get somehow worse. Therefore, he needs his protectors. Where a Thunder Warrior wasn't enough for his armies, and half of his—
Is it going to be the Custodes next?
The Emperor's personal bodyguards are something else entirely. They are not the fallible Astartes, nor are they a nightmarish concoction of organs and indoctrination. They are built and gene-crafted,
badass looking,
bordering on magic. They number 10,000 strong, and each of them is a hero. They are the
Adeptus Custodes, that's right.
Rare is the battle where an Emperor's custodians outnumber our foes. We are ever beset, surrounded upon all sides by heresy.
Man, those Discord noises are tripping me up, bro. I gotta remember it's in there. I got myself muted on Discord.
We stand resolute, indefatigable, indomitable. Let the enemy come. Let them darken the horizon with their numbers. Still, we will prevail. Though the Emperor sits rotting on the golden throne, his talons remain sharp. The Talons of the Emperor was the name given to the most elite forces at his disposal. The left hand of his talons comes in the form of the Sisters of Silence, psychic blanks that scour the—
I wonder if we're gonna get Valador name dropped in here.
Fuel the Astronomicon in the form of the Great Tide. 1,000 psychers sacrificed daily to keep the Emperor of Mankind alive, dragged into the black ships of the Silent Sisterhood. The right hand of the Emperor's protectorate.
What a great fate. Want to go be a battery?
Him and only him. These
fuel for the battery.
Custodians. While the members of the Space Marines went out to take back the galaxy, the Legio Custodes stood back and kept a close watch over the Emperor himself. The Custodes are, in a sense, similar to Space Marines in that they are genetically modified super soldiers clad in power armor, but that is where the similarities stop.
All I can think of is that that episode of what is it? If the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, where like the Custodians are just like, oh, what have you been doing? We've been guarding you. Go fucking do anything useful. Like, you know what I mean? Because they're just in the fucking palace still for 10,000 years protecting the corpse of the Emperor, and it's just like, why don't you get out there and go help? I don't know. They do stuff. They do stuff sometimes, to be fair. They just don't deploy in large numbers usually. But you know, it makes sense. There's so many threats to Terra itself, to Holy Terra. It makes sense why they got to boot around and definitely keep up on security as well. But goddamn, if they couldn't be used on occasion elsewhere, holy shit, you know?
Genetically modified super soldiers clad in power armor, but that is where the similarities stop. Their genetic makeup seems to be made from the Emperor himself, or at least something quite close. And the precision of their creation predates the development of the Space Marines and even the Primarchs. Unlike Space Marine recruitment, where there's a process undertaken when a subject is at least somewhat grown, a Custodian's process begins at infancy. The methods in which they are made are a secret, but what is known is that at the very beginning, each Custodian was made by the Emperor himself. Regardless of the bioalchemical process, the process is exceptionally long and grueling, and only a handful of selected aspirants make it to the end. Those that do are clad in the most regal and effective armor in the Imperium. Commonly, a Custodian is—
it just screams aura, that armor.
An utterly yoked up version of the stabs the Praetorian Guards of the Emperor in Star Wars had.
Damn.
They are also clad with specific shields and blades, but the most interesting thing with all of their gear is that due to the meticulous and dedicated maintenance and preservation of their armor and gear, these items are the same ones they used 10,000 years ago.
Wow.
The Custodians do not age biologically. So some of the veterans in the guard,
and it's cool to know too that the Custodians, like specifically, they all are armed with like artifact type weapons. You know what I'm saying? This is all shit that's been around forever. You know what I'm saying? Not forever in the grand scheme of things, but it has been around for. It's got history to it. All their equipment. So I feel like, you know, if ever like any one of their weapons were to be gifted to like an Astartes or a chapter master, anything like that, you know, it'd be like, holy shit, like I'm literally holding like a piece of history. This is a relic. I'm going to treasure this. You know what I'm saying? Because it literally is like the Emperor himself in a way. Like these are, you know, if the Primarchs are his sons, what does that make the Custodians? You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of crazy to think about because it's literally a creation of the Emperor using a bit of his own genome, supposedly, right? It's, I guess it's a secret, but man, I wonder what that does make the Custodians, because I would see them as like sons in a sense too, almost just as maybe as much as the Primarchs. It's hard to say. It's very hard to say.
The Custodians do not age biologically, so some of the veterans in the guard may be several thousand years old.
Yeah.
And unlike the Space Marines, they fight entirely as a solo force. When a line of Custodians is holding back waves of enemies, they operate independently. There are no battle formations, there are no squad tactics. Each Custodian is the main character, trailed by serfs.
That's a good way to put it.
Tasked entirely
they don't need
to
tactics.
reload their weapons. They fight with a singular purpose, if not action. Groups of Custodians will dispatch enemy after enemy, their spears coming within inches of each other, but never close enough for a killing blow. Their strikes are intentionally defensive, allowing their opponents to attack 1 to 2 times before parrying and ending their lives. Each strike deflected is an opportunity to know their enemy more and learn from their patterns. They are truly the Emperor's bodyguards, masters of close combat, enemy knowledge, and reactions measured in milliseconds. Though the Custodians are a part of the Adeptus Terra, the members of the Guard only answer to their own leadership and the Emperor himself.
Right.
The leader of the Custodians is known as the Captain General, and individual squads of Custodians are overseen by a shield captain. As their focus is on the Emperor, their command center is located within the Imperial Palace.
On
the
Terra,
Tower
yeah.
of Hegemon serves as their primary base of operations, but there is a dedicated elite guard of Custodians known as the Companions that stands 300 strong by the Emperor's side. In total, the
Holy
Custodians
shit.
are 10,000 strong.
Is it actually
and when a member
300?
retires,
That's funny.
Their name is added to the Hall of Name and vanish across the galaxy
Retired.
in a cloaked disguise to serve as eyes and ears for the Imperium.
That's kind of crazy. I've never heard of a Custodian retiring. You know what I'm saying? I assumed retired meant death in their case, but do they actually get to go like live lives sometimes? They're still like the eyes of the Emperor, but they're not like as, you know, obvious, I guess, that they're Custodians, you know, or that they're Custodies, because goddamn, like, holy shit, you know, again, they just scream ore. They look amazing, I have to say. The armor looks fantastic, the headdress looks fantastic, their weapons are insane, and they're much bigger and physically stronger than any Astartes could be. Like, to compare the two is pretty nuts, you know what I'm saying? You do get some Astartes that can go almost toe-to-toe with the Custodians, but to compare them is on average it's a joke, you know what I'm saying? Custodians are way fucking stronger.
Despite their numbers and their strength, the members of the Custodians do not consider themselves to be soldiers or warriors in any way. They see themselves strictly as the guardians of the Emperor in all facets of his presence. This extends beyond the physical. Custodians believe they represent the guarding of the Emperor's ideals and philosophies too. Their gains are both physical and literary. They are the protectorates of everything the Emperor stood for, and in doing so, the Custodians are also artisans and scholars, in addition to being the Golden Guard of the Golden Throne. However, due to this nature of being protectorates, they have a very strong view when it comes to the Space Marines and the Primarchs. The Emperor himself had insinuated many times that once the galaxy was brought to heel, that there would be no need for the Space Marines anymore.
Yeah.
And they were,
what does
the
that
same
imply?
way that the Thunder Warriors went before them. The
Oh,
Custodians
no.
were meant to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this will.
Yikes.
And are biologically designed not only to be able to take down a Space Marine with ease, but to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Primarch as well.
That's
the
crazy.
Heresy, the Custodians muse on how suspiciously...
It's crazy to think like how like they were already pre-designed to be like Primarch hunters in a way. You know, the weapons that they use can actually kill Primarchs potentially. It just goes further to show you that, like, I don't know, the Emperor, he very deceptive, you know. No one knows what was going on in his head. No one can know the outcomes he was thinking, obviously, but goddamn, he was deceptive, and he clearly had it out. You know, they were tools, you know, the Primarchs are tools, the Astartes are tools, everything's a tool to him. Who knows what exactly he is, because, you know, as much as he claims to care about humanity, his actions kind of show a different story in a way, you know. It's hard to say.
The Primarch as well. During the Heresy, the Custodians muse on how suspiciously easy it was to kill Chaos Space Marines, as if they were trained and made for that explicit purpose.
Wow.
Constantine Valdor, one of the closest advisors of the Emperor, was asked if he ever disagreed with Big E on something, and he said once, with the formation of the Primarchs.
Wow.
I feel I do my best, but they don't.
Let me ask you a
God
very
damn.
fair question. What do you do
Is that
successfully?
Lorgar?
Quickly.
I hate that every time we're in Untucked, the conversations are about me.
And besides
fuck?
the trained distrust for Space Marines, the Custodians also have evidence for their distrust. The Horus Heresy saw half of the chapters fall to chaos and turn traitor against the Emperor. In
It's
the
true.
mind of a Custodian, the fact that half of the Space Marines fell before means that the other half can fall with ease.
Yeah.
They are fully capable of wiping out literally
Already shows it's
any
capable.
force put against them, and in a sense are the final representation of the golden age of terror. However, they are forced to stand in silent and blind service to the Emperor and to the ill of the Imperium. And they, for 10,000 years, have stood vigil over the Imperium and have watched its rise and fall with the inability to do anything about it. While they do go out and fight some battles here and there, at the end of the day, the vastness of the Imperium means that the closest advisors to the Emperor himself are powerless to make any change. But goddamn, can they kill a Space Marine? For 100 years,
I want to say too, and I could be wrong, but they can't make more Custodians anymore either. That was kind of like a thing the Emperor could do. Only he knew the secrets of the creation of the Custodians. I'm pretty sure. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So they can't actually make any more. So if like ever a Custodians gets killed, it's kind of a fucking big deal, you know, because you can't replace those losses ever. And they are some of the most knowledgeable, most combat wise, most strategically analytic fighters, warriors that the Imperium has. You know, they're some of the best that they have to offer. The Emperor fully intended to make more of them, I'm pretty sure, but you know, obviously his plans got cut short, or did they? I guess, who knows, right? Hard to say, but you know, I think he planned for there to be a lot more of them, but obviously, you know, what happened, so there's only 10,000 left right now. A lot of them died during the Siege of Terra too. A lot of them got cut down.
change.
Make no mistake.
Goddamn, can they kill a Space Marine? For 100 years, I stood my watch amidst the somber shadows of the Sanctum Imperialis. I was still as a statue, but always ready, always attuned to dangers unseen. Days, months, years passed by in a frenzied blur beyond those walls, yet within, little moved and nothing changed. For 100 years, I did not but wait, yet had any threat appeared, I would have struck it down in a heartbeat.
Wow.
For 100 years, I stood my watch, and as it ends, I tell you this: patience is a weapon. Of course, a threat directly to Terra itself would appear to be something foolish. It's in the deepest
Would
parts
appear
of
to be.
space, and
All
is
depends.
one of the most defended bastions in the galaxy.
Depends if you can get there or
truly have
not.
to be foolhardy or insane to think that you can take on Terra itself. However, one faction certainly got close. In the dark ages of the stars and in a river of misery, there is one faction having a cracking old time. The galaxy sees them as savages, yet they have already figured out the questions of the universe. Their numbers are uncountable, their technology incomprehensible, and yet their violence is so very green. I am, of course
the greenskins
about the.
Yeah. I was confused, but he was cracking a joke about their technology. Yeah.
For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst.
No.
Who are we?
They have a great time, bro.
Them? We Eldar who have failed, or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn? And why? Because we saw answers to questions that an orc wouldn't even bother to ask.
Literally.
We see a culture that is strong and despise it as crude. During the war in heaven, the old ones were doing their...
Theoretically, any hate for the orcs could just be like summed up to saltiness. Like everyone else like cares about what's going on. The orcs don't give a fuck. They just want a good fight, bro. They just want a good fight. They don't care, you know? They're just out there to have a good time with the bros, you know? That's all it is for them. All these like hard-hitting questions, all these nuanced questions, you don't need it. Get in the spaceship and fucking let's go kill some shit, you know? That's what it is. Chop them down, boys, you know? That's, you know, I love the orcs, you know, and also just the abilities that some of them have. I'm going to let Bricky take it away with this one a little bit. I love the orcs in the Warhammer setting, in the 40k setting, and in fantasy too. In fantasy, they seem a lot more serious, let's say, with some comedic elements as well. But in 40k, they have a lot more comedic elements. But that's not a bad thing. They're goofy, but they're fun. That's for sure.
And despise it as crude. During the war in heaven, the old ones were doing their best to spawn as many combatants to their cause as possible by seeding the galaxy in a specialized sense. The Eldar were made to be a precise and tactical species to fight off the Catan and the Necrons, but another prominent species was made by them as well. The Krork were warriors clad in ornate armor with more dangerous weaponry. However, things changed, and these warriors...
Like, these things were badass, right?
...are no more.
The Krork.
They are now known as the boys, the lads, the mates, the orcs. An orc in 40k looks like an orc in most other fantasy media. Hulking, warlike monstrosities with big teeth and worse attitudes.
Definitely.
However, unlike the more Tolkien-esque forms of these creatures, the devastating nature of the orcs is in their biology. Unlike most species in the galaxy, the orcs are
a fungus.
A type of fungus.
Yeah.
This fungus itself comes in various forms. The small goblin-like Gretchen and Snotlings are a part of this fungal.
Which that too, I will say, was very cool to learn about. The actual orc physiology. The fact that they're not really like biological like mammals, you know, in a way. They're biological, but they're not like mammals in a sense. They're actually a fungus, so they can kind of like lose organs, they can lose pieces of them. It doesn't affect them to the same degree because they're literally a fungus in a sense, you know what I'm saying? So like, you know, shots that would otherwise kill anything else, you know, through the chest cavity, through the heart, you know, where it should be, these things in theory could potentially walk it off. Nah, that's not to say it'll always happen, but it definitely could. Obviously a headshot will probably take them out pretty good as well, but you see instances where even that could, like, you know, they might still be fucking swinging with their last breath at you, you know what I'm saying? They're crazy motherfuckers. I love the orcs though, man. I have to say, love the orcs.
The small goblin-like Gretchen and Snotlings are a part of this fungal ecosystem as well, and also the squigs, which can be used for basically anything. But regardless of what is a part of the fungal system, all of them are born from spores that land on the ground and grow. As they travel around the galaxy, they drop spores literally everywhere, and then an orc dies, and they drop tons of fungal spores that allows for their numbers to be replenished over a period of time. Because of this, orcs are not only extremely prominent across the galaxy, but they are exceptionally resilient due to their growing cycle. Even if one orc lands on a planet, it will be nearly impossible to get rid of all of the orc presence unless the planet itself is completely destroyed. And even then, they might find a way to survive.
True.
Due to their fungal nature, orcs don't really stop growing, and the more long-lived an orc is, the bigger they get, and the more
which is crazy to think about.
The bigger they get. Of course, since they're constantly getting
like boars
scraps,
almost.
An orc's lifespan isn't necessarily that long, so the bigger orcs are harder to find. Though alongside this, however, they are a tribe-based species that is comprised of warbands, and the biggest and the strongest orc leads the warband known as the War Boss. At the bottom end of the orc tribal system are the Gretchens and the Snotlings. These members act as the servants and slaves of the orcs, and sometimes their actual ammunition, despite being a bit smarter and more cunning than their bigger brethren. Because I
have to say, I love, like, you know, every time I see like goblins in 40k, even in fantasy, they're always doing, like, you know, the suicide runs, you know what I'm saying? They're always attached to like gliders with rockets and shit on them, going straight into the enemy lines. They definitely seem like the most how you say, expendable when it comes to the orc population. They don't really seem to care about them at all. In fantasy, you do see some goblins actually like appearing to be like warlords and stuff, though, themselves, like leading their own tribes, which is very impressive for a goblin, you know. But you know, in 40k, I don't think that happens so much. I think it's definitely the orcs rule them, and if you're a goblin, you're probably on the lowest tier of society you could ever be on. Wow.
Despite being a bit smarter and more cunning than their bigger brethren. Because in orc culture, the biggest is the boss. The smallest gets picked on and thrown around. Beyond the warbands and the tribes, orcs also belong to a specific clan. Tribes constantly shatter and rebuild, but the clans do not. They are, in a sense, a psychological state of being for any given orc, and gives an orc their specific character and traits.
It's like a household, quote unquote.
These clans are also color-coded, so that's very easy to tell what orc does what. Though there are many clans out there, 6 of them are the most prominent and well-known. The Bad Moons are essentially the merchants and have a lot of money because their currency is teeth, and they grow teeth faster than any others. The Blood Axes are the stealth units, and by stealth it means like slightly more quiet than the others, and they have a love for LARPing as humies.
Slightly more quiet than the others.
And the Goths are the close combat specialists. And on the two ends,
they don't scream all the time.
Evil Sons and the more traditionalist and tribal snakebites. Another major facet.
I never actually knew of all these orc tribes.
They believe in 2 gods,
clans.
Gork and Mork.
I knew of Gork and Mork.
Is cunningly brutal, and Mork is brutally cunning. The difference between them, according to orcs, is that Mork hits you when you aren't looking, and Gork hits you when you are. There's a lot of confusion as to which one is which, and this results in a lot of infighting. In other species, this would be considered a sort of religious conflict, but for the orcs, it's just another excuse to fight.
Looks the same.
Here, but I don't really do a good orc voice. So I'm going to get my co-host of That's Ridiculous to read this one, and I'll try to lip sync it.
Oh, he's more cunning than a grot, and more killy than a dread. The boys that follow me can't be
not a bad lip sync, honestly.
On Pisenna, we jumped the Marine boys, and our boss pose
little off,
was
but not
covered
bad.
in the helmets we took from the dead-ends. We burned
good
their
orc voice, whoever did this.
Killed their bosses and left nothing but ruins behind.
Damn.
I'm Warlord Gezgul Mac Uruk, and I speak with the word of the gods. We's gonna stomp the universe flat and
love
kill anything
quote.
what fights back. We's gonna do this cause we're
we's the
orcs,
best.
and we was made to fight and win.
It's because it fucking sounds
wrong
terrible.
quote.
Fighting is the
we's orcs,
biggest
we's the best.
aspect
Wrong
of
quote.
orc culture, and it's essentially their life's purpose.
Damn.
They're genetically hardwired.
Not a bad lip sync
to get
though.
into battles.
I have to give credit to that guy too, his co-host there of That's Ridiculous, his podcast. I'm pretty sure that is. I haven't seen his podcast yet. I should check that out sometime. No, you did a really good orc voice there. I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised by that. Really good orc voice. Good job on that.
Essentially their life's purpose. They are genetically hardwired to get into battles and scraps with enemies that can feel pain. The more they fight, the bigger they get. This, combined with them getting bigger over time, means that some of the biggest and baddest orcs of all time have been notably gigantic. The Beast, as he was known, was about the size of an Imperial Knight. If an orc runs out of other enemies to fight, they will immediately start.
Could you imagine just a regular ass orc being as big as an Imperial Knight? That's insane.
In the Warp, a planet exists where a band of orcs are in a constant state of war and battle, and have been for an improbably long amount of time, strictly because how much Khorne enjoys himself watching it. For some, being trapped in a perpetual war planet for all eternity would be a fate worse than death, but to the boys, this is heaven. In the event of a particularly
the orcs don't give a fuck. They're there for it.
A massive amount of tribes and war bands will unite under what is known as the Wa. The concept of a WA covers a few bases. The first is the group aspect of the massive green tidal wave of orcs fighting for the same cause, the cause being the second base. But the most prominent aspect of the WA is the psychic aspect of it. Remember how the old ones made the Eldar and all the Eldar are psychic? Well, the orcs are too, kinda, but just not as much.
As a group they are.
A bit of it. And they often don't know how to use it and frankly don't care. But a huge gathering of orcs generates a psychic field that allows orcs to be more organized, dangerous, and dedicated to the war-based cause. However, the true extent of the psychic energy and its usage is relatively unknown, but that doesn't matter considering the outcome 90% of the time. In a similar sense, their ragtag technology and weaponry is also a mystery to most who encounter it.
It just works.
Of that
Get Todd Howard in here.
Technology the orcs use seem to be held together with duct tape and plastic glue.
Yeah.
And crude doesn't even begin to describe it. Their guns seem to have an inordinate amount of ammunition and firepower, and they are seemingly able to put things together on the
how come the
fly
orcs never have to reload?
Combat. The Imperium is of the mind that the orcs' weapons and machinery only work due to their innate psychic ability, but realistically, orc gear hardly works in the first place. Weapons blow up in a Bugs Bunny-esque manner all the time, and their war buggies can collapse in the middle of battle. Just because it works a handful of times does not mean it's an effective weapon. But this doesn't stop the orcs and their green tide.
Quantity really is better than quality, am I right?
The orcs can operate purely off of belief. Now, a misconception is that orcs believe something is real and it happens. But that isn't true, because that's just one orc. However, there's never one orc. There's normally a few billions of orcs. And if they all believe something is true, the warp will tend to respond with a positive green light. Sometimes. Do the red ones go faster? Well, with enough orcs, yeah. How does an orc buggy with an engine block that's just a boulder with vroom vroom written in chalk? Who cares? Orcs breathing on a ship.
The orc says it does.
Go ahead. An orc went back in time to kill a version.
Yeah, the orcs breathing on like a ship with a hull breach. Yeah, because the orcs don't know that there's a hull breach yet. They just think they're breathing air still. That's how it works, right? Like, goddamn.
Breach, go ahead. An orc went back in time to kill a version of himself so he could have two of his favorite weapons. It is shenanigans.
What the fuck?
Because of their actions and aesthetic, the orcs tend to be presented in a comic relief sense in a lot of media, particularly the media from their perspective.
But they're terrifying
and loud and goofy British football hooligans, and they say silly things and act in silly ways. But to the citizens of the Imperium,
it's awful.
The orcs are far from funny.
Yeah, they're not goofy. They're not funny.
Irrational creatures that take humans for punching bags, slaves, or ultimately dinner. They have no moral compass and are violent and brutal killers that know nothing else. They are genetically designed to be a violent species that was capable of beating back
they spread
the
so quick.
And the Catan. And if the orcs were ever able to unify under one banner,
insane,
they
you're
would
done.
Be utterly unstoppable.
Yeah, you're done.
However, due to their aggressive nature, their organizational skills are non-existent, and they tend to just beat each other up.
Yeah, they kill each other way too often, way more than anyone else, probably statistically.
If they wipe out their enemies, they will inevitably wipe themselves out as well. They are a brutal Ouroboros doomed to an endless war cycle, but to an orc, why does it matter? If they fight and they win, they win. If they fight and they die, it was a good fight. Now that the Xenos armies are growing in strength and more are threatening the safety of the Imperium, they need to bring new methods in order to handle what they are currently facing. The Emperor is on the Golden Throne. Half the Space Marines are traitor, and they are beset from enemies within and without. So now the Lords on Terra must prepare for anything possible, and sometimes the impossible. For that, they take to the stars to explore and expand. They recruit assassins for priority eliminations. They train a galactic police force and a secret police to root out.
Is this the Assassinatorium?
The lesser known yet most feared.
Wow. Agents of the Imperium?
I carry with me an inquisitorial seal. It is a small, unassuming object contained in a neat box of Pluvian obsidian.
Okay.
It is a modest thing, relatively plain, adorned with a single motif and a simple motto. Yet with this,
this is everything.
I can sign the death warrant of an entire world and consign 1 billion souls to oblivion.
Isn't that
the
fucked?
Imperium may see its justice dealt out by the hands of its armies and the gauntlets of its Astartes. When one needs eyes, ears, or both cut out, it looks to the agents of the Imperium. In a meta sense, these agents are a homogenized version of multiple factions from the original video 5.
Okay.
They comprise multiple aspects of the wide and all-encompassing armies of humanity and serve different roles.
I think this is a good way to do it, right? Because I think in his last video, he had like different sub-factions, like each different one, and he touched on them kind of as separate things. I think it's decent. He's got a little bit more time dedicated to like a bigger chapter here where he's just talking about the broad agents of the Imperium. I think I like that a little bit more, especially because, again, it's a taster video, right? If you want to learn more, you definitely want to go and check out like some more in-depth lore videos. This is like a taster, right? This is to get you interested in the hobby, right? Interested into the setting, right? So I think I prefer this version of it. Let's see.
Aspects of the wide and all-encompassing armies of humanity and serve different roles. Whether it be the law enforcers of the Adeptus Arbites, the void-faring explorers of rogue traders, the invisible hand of the Assassinorum, or the hospitality of the Emperor's Inquisition.
Yeah.
Each has a part to play in the God Emperor's domain. Rogue traders are a great example of a somewhat undiscussed...
Rogue traders are very cool. I gotta check out a lore video about
them.
While
you may see the General Imperium as a totalitarian hellscape, because it is, this is to those under the boot of the nobles that run it. Rogue traders are a special kind of explorer, and their existence is extremely important to the function of the Imperium. A rogue trader is often an extremely special individual and is given the monumentally sized warrant of trade, allowing them to be given almost complete and utter freedom. Their
autonomy,
to chart the
which is insane,
learn the unlearned, and do whatever they can as an explorer and conquistador for those back on Terra. This information
it's all Spain? What the fuck?
Invaluable. Whether a sector can be settled and colonies built, or precious rare resources exist on a floating asteroid can be mined, or a long-lost Imperial world from the Age of Strife is recovered, it's all absolutely imperative. These rogue traders are faster than any other kind of Imperial armada, and therefore chart the direction of the entire society. Because of this, rogue traders are given a substantial amount of freedom. They have a ship and a crew of specialists, and can do things that would see any normal person shot. They can barter deals and even recruit Xenos races. They can
which is insane.
Strictly prohibited, and they can earn a vast amount of wealth and riches in doing so. This tends to make rogue traders...
They're kind of like privateers in a sense, but they're very much like, while the Imperium is obviously their governing body, they're allowed so much autonomy, allowed to recruit Xenos. They're allowed to do stuff very strictly outside of the bounds of the normal Imperium. And I think that's what makes them so interesting, is like you can get so many different story arcs going alongside with the rogue traders. I feel like they're very, very interesting. And I know there's obviously the Rogue Trader game. I've never played it before, but it looks pretty cool. I'm not really into what's the style of game that those are called? Kind of like the MMORPG style. I'm not really too into those. I don't know if it's turn-based too. I think it is, which I don't have a problem with that, but I just never played it, never picked it up. I have to try it sometime for sure if it goes on sale, but damn, it seems like a very, very interesting aspect of the Imperium society. I would definitely love to learn a little bit more. Definitely have to check out a lore video on the rogue traders sometime.
And they can earn a vast amount of wealth and riches in doing so. This tends to make rogue traders a very long lineage, and their heirs take up the mantle of their house.
That's
By
cool.
being explorers, they become fabulously wealthy, and some can become quite the assholes while doing so. But truly, much like a night pilot, a rogue trader is an exceptionally rich individual who can back it up. They are master swordsmen, explorers, merchants, settlers, diplomats, and everything in between.
Damn.
They chart a course, and they
Who is that?
Routes, which means they will need
Somebody let me
someone
know.
to defend them, and the prime choice for that can be the Adeptus Arbites. Now, the Arbites are cops, Judge Dredd style cops, as their inspiration.
I haven't heard of them before.
Each
but they look very cool.
Members of local law enforcement, and most of them will settle many of the issues there and then.
I thought Guard largely held that responsibility, but clearly not.
Peacekeeping force, the Adeptus Arbites are brought in.
Wow,
Think
they do look like
local
Judge
police
Dredd.
Versus the FBI. Arbitrators in the Arbites.
Wait a second.
Think
That cop's wearing a McDonald's badge. What the fuck? That's gotta be fake. That has to be fake.
Arbitrators in the RBs
what the fuck?
tend to focus heavily on stopping crime before it can become too much of a threat. A criminal gang or heretical uprising can be subdued quickly and efficiently by utilizing them and dealing with soon-to-be criminals, as they put it. They will tap into—
Let's go back a little bit there. My alarm went off there. Holy, sorry about that.
Utilizing them and dealing with soon-to-be criminals, as they put it. They will tap into communications, create spy networks, do interrogations and sabotage, anything that helps the good of the Imperium and the law they seek to preserve. The code of the Arbites is laid out entirely via the Book of Judgment, a gigantic library of pages showing every single law from every single High Lord of Terra in the history of the Imperium. Because the Imperium is so vast, hundreds of laws are added every single day, and the library continues to grow with more and more laws and judgments.
And the shitty thing about that too is like each planet potentially could have its own law under Imperium rule. You know what I'm saying? So like each planet potentially has its own list of laws. There's no standardization. That library must be fucking gigantic given how many worlds there are. What's legal on one planet it might not be illegal on another, but they could be vastly different societies anyway, right? So it doesn't even make sense that they're the same. That would be so fucking confusing. Imperium bureaucracy makes me want to vomit, dude. Oh my god.
And the library continues to grow with more and more laws and judgments. While Arbites themselves carry a small version called the Book of Law on their person, this does end up creating a system where the unjustly prosecuted will never escape their prisons. If an innocent is wrongly convicted, any form of legal counsel will need to go through the Book of Judgment to help get you out.
Which will never happen.
These prisoners require hundreds of years of litigation in which they will eventually expire before they can be deemed wrongly convicted. Innocence is irrelevant. You have been judged guilty of transgressing the Lex Imperialis. Do not compound your guilt by evading punishment, as there are greater crimes, so are there greater sentences. Of course, should something go out of the hands of the Adeptus Arbites, there is always the silent hand of the Officio Assassinorum to take their place. Naturally, the Imperium has assassins, and these assassins—
they'll send the assassins at you.
Figures that would not normally be handled by simply sending waves and waves of guardsmen at it. The Assassinorum is headed by the Grand Master of the Assassinorum.
We don't hear a lot about the assassins.
The shadiest individual in the entire galaxy. At his disposal are multiple types of assassins that all specialize in various things. Their training is extreme and absurd. Aspirant children are often subjected to Hunger Games style combat with each other on the ride over to the temple. Then you get low gravity, high pressure, traps, horrendous physical and mental strain, and everything in between. Then their minds are wiped completely and the real fun begins. An Imperial assassin is nothing to mess around with. They are some of the fastest moving and hardest hitting things the Imperium has at hand and can go toe to toe with Space Marines depending on which temple they are from. Some, like the Vindicares, are master snipers who lie in wait for weeks.
And wasn't there a story too where like an assassin, like one of these oh, I forget what they're called now. The Death Skull fucking assassins. They're kind of like the badasses, like the fucking Terminator style guys. Wake up out of cryopods and just go start blasting on planets where they're released on. Didn't one of these guys actually manage to take down quite a few Space Marines at one point? If I recall, and it was only like the last one managed to get the final blow on him to kill him kind of thing. I forget what these guys are called. Obviously, Bricky's probably going to tell us here, but let's keep going.
Some, like the Vindicares, are master snipers.
Vindicares are the snipers, I know that.
Days or even months, just to get the perfect headshot from 5 kilometers away and disappear. The Calidus Temple are masters of shape-shifting and take a drug that allows them to transmute their body into whatever they see fit. A confidant of a target may be killed and they will take their place before killing their target outright. Or they can shift into a member of a Chaos Warband with symbols and flesh and all that to earn the trust of a cult leader before slitting their throat. The Caluxus Assassin is a psychic blank, a soulless mutation, making them appear as uneasy to normal humans and downright disgusting to psychers. When a powerful psyker is causing issues, this is who you send. Their specialized helmet enhances their already latent powers and will allow them to all but drain the souls from those those they touch and their very body. It is an extreme weapon used when a direct form of pressure must be applied to an otherwise untouchable psyker. Now, if you need direct pressure in a more literal way, the Eversaurs.
The Eversaurs, that's what they're called. Eversaurs.
That is directly dropped on enemy lines and allowed to.
Can't believe I forgot that. Damn, it's been a while.
And everything it sees.
Thank you, Bricky.
In a blaze of movement and blood before it inevitably dies and causes a plasma explosion on its demise.
Yeah.
There are other temples as well. The Vanus Temple, acting as sort of like a cyber hacker. The
I haven't heard of them.
Temple, specializing in
holy shit.
But all in all, assassins move with their skin-tight body gloves with a speed unmatched and force unexpected. One of the best assassin novels puts a Vindicator Calidus and Vanus to infiltrate a night world, kill the High Monarch of the Night, who is permanently stuck in his giant robot knight, install a new ruler in his stead, and make sure nobody knows the Imperium did it. Their missions are insanity, and their tasks impossible, and they do it anyway.
But they probably make for great novels, to be fair.
We do not determine the guilty, we do not decide the punishment. We are merely the cold instrument of the Emperor's vengeance.
True.
There is no form of death unknown to us.
They just do what they're told.
Terror beyond our means.
They don't judge.
There is no enemy outside our reach. We are the blade that hovers over the throat of the traitor. We are the bullet that awaits the heretic's skull. We are the poison in the throat of the alien.
Damn.
However, despite the prowess of the traitors, the police, and the assassins, there is one that stands above all. As the Imperium settled into its post-Emperor world, they needed a force to root out corruption wherever it could be found. But they needed specialized individuals who could do so. Men and women who would serve as detective and executioner. This new secret police would have unlimited authority, and they would be known as the Inquisition. Inquisitors of the Inquisition are one of the most feared individuals in all of the galaxy. For the common
I've heard of the Inquisition, but I don't know a ton about them.
Trained in the most difficult of conditions and mental hardening, they have long closed their minds to the compassions of those they deem guilty.
Yeah.
Inquisitors are, for the most part, detectives, but they are detectives whose authority is unmatched and actions justified.
They can do
by
a
the
lot of
state
shit.
Itself.
Yeah.
Similar to the KGB, the Gestapo, the Stasi, the OVRA, but unlike those organizations, the Inquisition has far more authority.
Like we've heard of like Inquisitors like calling like exterminatus on certain planets and stuff before, right? They do have like in theory ultimate power to do like what they deem fit to save the Imperium, right? Even under like, you know, not that serious of circumstances, sometimes under serious circumstances, but you know, their word is kind of law. You can't really argue with them, which means if ever they get corrupted, and that has happened quite a bit, I hear, it's quite the fucking problem, because like, what do you do about it?
But unlike those organizations, the Inquisition has far more authority and is one of the only types of individuals who can commit exterminatus, a term used for the utter and total destruction of a planet that is no longer deemed usable by the Imperium.
Exactly.
While it is a very exciting word and a commonly notable thing done in Warhammer, exterminatus is not actually used particularly often. It's a last resort entirely meant to stop the enemy from gaining a major foothold or spread even more corruption. Even with 1 million worlds, the wholesale slaughter of an entire planet is still a massive blow to the Imperium. Inquisitors range quite a bit,
especially depending on the world
they operate, but also in their personalities. They are often main characters for a large amount of books, as detective noir is a great genre, and they can be the most stone-cold killer or a pragmatic and sympathetic individual depending on who they are. Radical Inquisitors may utilize methods unlike most of the Imperium, such as alien tech or even demon hosts, where Puritans stick closer to the methods of the religious state and shun any deviations. They also specialize in various aspects, as the Inquisition has orders or ordos, such as Xenos for aliens, Malleus for demons, and Hereticus for, you guessed it,
heretics.
If you are a normal citizen of the Imperium, a person flashing an inquisitorial rosette in front of you may be one of the most terrifying moments of
you might shit your pants.
It is the same as an FBI badge or a KGB member, except now you're in Warhammer. So their authority and tools are infinite. Agents of the
You're gonna get taken. The only reason they're talking to you is for a reason. They want you.
and they continue to expand as the Emperor's descent into the Golden Throne has lasting effects on humanity. As time progressed, a few people seeing the Emperor as a deity made their voices louder, and over a few thousand years, worship of the Emperor was not only considered expected, but state mandated. This church will be known as the Ecclesiarchy, and there were many who would look to the cardinal position and make desperate grabs at their power, leaving horrid effects on the populace. The Age of Apostasy was a time of reformation in the Imperium that saw its eventual change into an overtly religious empire. During this time, an all-female warrior cult to the Emperor called the Daughters of the Emperor were a bit more isolated from the wider Imperium. However, as the
I've not heard of them either.
Root, one Goj Van Dyer became the High Lord of the Administratum and noticed these warriors and felt they could be useful to him. Goj himself told these warriors that he was the voice of the Emperor himself and demanded they fire upon him to prove it. Having a little force field that this warrior cult had never seen before, the bullet bounced off of him and showing him to be unharmed, truly blessed by the Emperor. This cult became known as the Brides of the Emperor and acted as his personal bodyguards and aides. However, Goj Van Dyer was a tyrant, and his horrendous...
I couldn't see, like, you know, this obvious, like, high priest, like, you know, getting a bunch of, you know, able-bodied women to go and assist him, be his bodyguard and aides, quote unquote. You know, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see corruption in the Imperium ever happening. Why would that happen? You know, ultimate power? No, couldn't. You know, it's got to be for a reason. He's clearly blessed. Yeah, definitely.
Aides. However, Goj Van Dyer was a tyrant, and his horrendous reign spelled ruination for the wider Imperium.
Looks like a mad king.
Made the Adeptus Custodes take notice. Despite an outright coup and revolt against him, the deadlock was getting steep as the Brides of the Emperor's fierce combat skills kept him safe. One Custodian made contact with the leader of the Brides and brought her into the throne room of the Emperor himself. Nobody knows what transpired in that room, save for Alicia Dominica, the Custodian, and the Emperor himself. However, she left the room with her hair bleached pure white from the interaction, marched her battle brides directly to Van Dyer himself and said, "You have committed the ultimate heresy. Not only have you turned your back on the Emperor,
this is where they change.
Light, you have profaned his name and almost destroyed everything he has striven to build.
Wow.
You have perverted and twisted the path he has laid for mankind to tread. As your decrees have stated, there can be no mercy for such a crime, no pity for such a criminal. I renounce your lordship. You walk in the darkness and cannot be allowed to live. Your sentence has been long overdue, and it is now time for you to die." Despite not having any time to die, Goj Van Dyer found some time to do so. With his head lopped clean from his body, the Brides of the Emperor were no more, and the Ecclesiarchy signed a document to stop Van Dyer's reign from happening again. They would no longer be allowed to have men under arms. Men.
Right. Yeah, the Cynreius. So this is where they come into play.
Or commonly known as the Sisters of Battle, the nuns with guns, the fighting force.
So I never knew the backstory behind the Sisters of Battle. I never actually knew that they, like, that's how they got their name. That's how they got their bleached white hair. I never really knew much about them at all. So it's good that we're getting actually like a look into the Adeptus Sororitas, because I feel like, again, the Sisters of Battle, like, you don't really see them too often in the mainstream lore and the mainstream, like, Warhammer community. I feel like they don't get a whole lot of love, but they are very, very interesting. And, you know, it's cool that they were actually getting a little segment here dedicated to them finally. Like, yeah, because I've always wanted to see more about them, but most videos just don't reference them at all.
Of the church. Despite being the main militant faction, the Sisters of Battle, their organization actually is far more diverse than this and have many more nun-based roles for their members. They are organized by various orders with various specialties in mind, such as the non-militant orders like the Hospitaller, Dialogus, and Familius, including things like helping with surgical equipment and various other medical stuff, Duolingo, and a poli-sci degree. These orders are further separated into smaller orders in an almost Space Marine chapter sense, but tend to have more flexibility due to the nature of their work.
I didn't know that.
In addition to that, there is flexibility between the orders. It is not uncommon for a member of one of the more battle-hardened orders to switch to a more passive one once they sustain battlefield injuries or are a bit closer to retirement. As mentioned before, the Sisters of Battle are a part of their own separate organization, the Order's Militant, and feature the highest number of any given system. They are the official fighting force of the ecclesiarchy, and they specialize in wars of faith. Unlike the deployment of Astartes and Guardsmen, the Sisters of Battle are often deployed with members of the Inquisitorial Ordo Hereticus due to the holy war nature of their battles. The Sisters of Battle are suited up with their own form of...
And I assume this is why like the Black Templars and them get along so well. It's because they still like they very much have like the same goal in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Kind of yes, kind of no. But I feel like their enemies are going to be a lot the same, you know, between the Black Templars and the Cynreius here. So I feel like that's why we always see them. We don't always see them together, but like in Hell's Reach, for example, they definitely do work side by side very, very well, and they look good together, I will say. So that's interesting.
The war nature of their battles. The Sisters of Battle are suited up.
They're mainly out there fighting heretics, but they will fight Xenos too, obviously, when their temples are under attack.
Though lacking the more extreme modifications of a Space Marine's power armor, mainly to the fact that Sisters are, for the most part, regular humans, the power armor of a Sister of Battle
that's important to know too.
Defensive power of an Astartes, but with added flexibility and versatility in exchange for strength. Some of the patterns of armor do allow for the enhancing of genetics, but this is far from the norm. This combined with an arsenal of tanks and vehicles that have literal church organ rocket launchers on them,
which
really
is sick,
brings across the holy war vibe.
Don't they straight up have like like a temple that they drop from space, and that's like, you know, fucking how they deploy out to battle with battle hymns, fucking like, you know, bringing it across the battlefield. Their fucking fortress monastery hits the ground and out they come. Isn't that a thing? Let's keep watching here. I don't want to misspeak, but man, what a fucking cool way to deploy to the battlefield. Again, they do seem very slept on as like a sub-faction, I have to say.
Launchers on them really brings across the holy war vibe in a
definitely
manner. Accompanying a Sister of
like, look at that tank.
War is the holy trinity of weaponry. The bolter, the flamer, and the melta. With such a simple loadout, the Sisters of Battle are able to bring down the glorious flames of the Emperor himself, and his holy light shines on them in other ways during a conflict.
Wow.
Hell, even their jump packs evoke angelic imagery as opposed to the more clunky jetpacks ones that Space Marines have. In times of great turmoil or impossibility,
they have that like Valkyrie-esque look to them almost.
Itself might appear on the battlefield surrounded by a litany of doves and cherubs, an almost comical scene of holy glory followed by literal hellfire. The Sisters are a fascinating organization because they take what is normally seen as a benevolent,
this was a cool animation. We checked this one out.
Head to be a horrifying method of war. Because the Sisters are so zealous, they are nigh impossible to persuade and almost never fall to chaos. In fact, any deviation from the Imperial faith may see you killed outright as you are deemed a heretic. And sometimes Sisters have even less patience than the Inquisition does. To the Adeptus Sororitas,
not corruptible at all. That's awesome.
Extreme for blasphemy and heretical behavior. Whether it's lobotomizing traitors to use as shock troops or attaching them physically to agonizing pain and
you'll moderate your Discord server
for the Emperor, anything goes. The most fascinating part of the Sisters, however, is their faith. We discussed how orcs often make things happen through belief because of their sheer number of them. The Sisters create miracles where they walk. They are not many psychers like orcs, but they are excessively devout and make up for that. Bullets barely miss targets they absolutely should hit. Guns jam, tanks malfunction, enemies slip and fall. The scene from Pulp Fiction is an accurate portrayal of what happens when the Sisters fight.
Damn.
I'd knock that shit off if I was you. Die, you motherfucker!
This is a great scene. I love Pulp Fiction, bro. Yeah.
One of the most prominent figures is the Triumph of St.
That's awesome, though.
Catherine,
I didn't know that. So it almost does seem like they have like some presence on the battlefield like that. Like they do kind of bring like the light with them where they go. If shit like that just seems to happen, like luck, I guess, quote unquote, just seems to go their way, you know? Damn, like they definitely do seem to have some type of aura on the battlefield, whether it be divine or not, you know? I guess, shit, I guess no one really knows.
One of the most prominent figures is the Triumph of St. Catherine, a literal open casket with the saint of a sister's order held aloft by lobotomized servant cherubs and protected by bodyguards of the faithful. The devotion to the emperor swells so strong that acts of faith are made manifest, and sometimes angels themselves. When the sisters go to war, they have thundering organs and litanies screeching out into the battlefield, hymns and songs.
Wow.
They rabble off prayers on their lips and burn holy fire across the area. They spray holy water down from horns atop their vehicles. It is a genuine holy war, a procession of death.
Yeah.
Saint Celestine is an undying deity, arriving precisely where she is needed and returning to the
blessing the area as they roll through, kind of thing. That's pretty dope.
She sees a crying young girl atop a mountain of bones, her bones, after every one of her deaths. She climbs this mountain every time to help comfort this crying child and is rebirthed upon the battlefield. And one day, her deaths will create a mountain so large that even she will not be able to traverse it. Is she a demon of the god emperor? Perhaps, but she'll be shot for saying so. She is genuinely and literally faith made manifest. Some sisters may make a mistake, however, and find themselves questioning their faith, disobeying a command, and even leaving their order. These sisters are sent for reconditioning and are known as the Sisters Repentia. They generally face the front of the line.
Sisters Repentia, eh? I've not heard of this this order. This is definitely something I'd like to learn a little bit more. These sisters need to repent. Oof, you know, and this is sanctioned by the Imperium too, you know what I'm saying? Like, goddamn.
And are known as the Sisters Repentia.
Let's move
they
on
generally
from that.
face the front of the line head on and seek retribution and forgiveness.
Head on's the best way.
Though their actions were heretical, repentia on the fields of battle is an indication of an individual wanting to become forgiven. They run aloft with torture devices attached to their bodies and
maybe not that. Okay, whoa.
Completely armorless.
Little too extreme there. Yikes.
If this is how they
maybe
die,
not. Try anything once.
Will forgive them. Even the most famous champion of the sisters, that Saint Celestine, was a repentia. Even she questioned her faith. And if she can do it, so can you.
Damn.
Just don't run away again. They don't really do third chances. The Sisters of Battle are martyrdom-enthused zealots that create miracles in their tread. Their devotion is boundless and also a direct source of their power. A whole army of power-armored soldiers shooting, burning, and melting all in their path is bad enough, but it enters a whole different level when God is on your side.
Truly.
By bolter shell, flamer burst, and melta blast, the mutant, the heretic, and the traitor alike are cleansed of their sin of existence. So has it been for 5 millennia, so shall
what about
it
the
be
Xenos?
until the end of time. The Imperium devolving into wars of faith is to push its agenda further. Where the xenophobic nature of humanity was once strong, it has now been magnified, and there are plenty of aliens in this galaxy. 6,000 years prior to the current events of 40k, a planet was found by an AdMech exploration vessel. The life forms on the planet were seen using tools, but they were still very primitive, so the planet was marked for destruction to pave
is this
the
the
way
Tau?
for the Imperial
Ew,
warship.
L.
However, this was thrown off because of an extreme warp storm and that whole Doge Van Dyer thing. Flash forward to modern day, and an unknown but highly advanced vessel was shot down near an Imperial mining world, and the bodies on this vessel matched those life forms found on that primitive world. The native creatures on that planet were able to evolve rapidly due to them being unobstructed, and their highly advanced gear posed a new threat to the Imperium. Advancing over these years with a remarkable speed, these are the new upstarts in the galaxy, looking to make a name for themselves, all in the name of the greater good. These are the...
Sorry. I don't know if we have any Tau enjoyers on the channel. I think that's been a running joke on the channel. I don't think anyone here enjoys the Tau, I'll be real. We've talked about it a little bit on the channel. Personally, in the setting, I feel like they're a little out of place. I think a lot of their stuff is cool. Don't get me wrong, they, very much mech based. But I hear they're very, very cheese to play on the tabletop and always kind of have been. They've always been a pain in the ass. And just in terms of their style, they don't really fit the grimdark setting, I suppose. But it's not to say they're awful. It's not to say I hate them. Just to say I know a lot of people do hate them.
The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and acquaint him with his inadequacies.
Death.
Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. The early history of the Tau is chaotic at best. Due to their extreme speed run to space travel, their journey to the stars were overburdened with inner conflict. It wasn't until the appearance...
I actually don't know a lot about the early life of the Tau.
These Tau to the warring tribes marked their unification under one common belief, the greater good of the Tau Va.
What about the greater good?
Oh, God.
How can this be for the greater good?
Hot Fuzz reference.
This system is a caste-based system that seeks to unify and organize the Tau into an effective and successful society while working for their mutual benefit. These castes, in order from lowest to highest, are the Fire or Shas caste, which is soldiers, Earth/Theo, which is manufacturers and industrialists, the Water or Core, being diplomats and traders, and the Air/Core, being Navy officers. Also the Ethereal/Un, which is the lords and leaders of the Tau. Now, unlike the paths of the Eldar, the Tau don't get any say into which caste they're in. It's determined,
and they're not psychers at all.
Inheritance from a parent. Trying to deviate from your caste or trying to do tasks or even use tools assigned to another caste is a grievous crime against the Ethereals, and those guilty of this crime tend to be sent to re-education camps, which sounds not so greater good, but a greater good than the good that the Imperium sees.
Now, what do their re-education camps look like?
The greater good also encourages the growth of the Empire through the absorption of other races and cultures. The expansion of the Tau Empire is split into spheres of time. So far, there have been 5 spheres of expansion, with a 6th one being planned in the current timeline. The first 2 spheres saw the Tau move beyond their homeworld and settle new planetary systems, known as Seps, and absorb multiple races into their ranks. But the 3rd sphere is where we see the Tau interact with the Imperium for the first time. Which went about as well as you think it did. The Tau, as mentioned before, are highly advanced compared to some of the other species in the galaxy, and their military tactics are highly precise. Instead of the Imperial methodology of throwing everything at a problem, the Tau carefully assess any battle and
they're smart with it.
As possible. Commonly, you will see a Tau
they prepare strategically and tactically.
With advanced
care about systems. Losses a little bit more.
Tau do not often consider close combat to be something very effective, so they don't really put much stock into it.
Which is fair.
Their Gundam-like battle suits have a multitude of functionality, ranging from overwhelming firepower to stealth-based combat. And since they're an upstart species with a bit of technical flair, they have plenty of AI drones that help them in the field of battle. In addition to this, the Tau are also joined in the field of battle by some of the species that have been absorbed into the fold of the greater good. These auxiliaries often employ tactics that the Tau are unable to do on their end.
Those things are terrifying.
Force and almost primitive nature of the Kroot, combined with the Geonosian aerial shock attack style of the Vespens. But the Tau assimilate more and more species with time, including even some humans who wish to break off from the Imperium for pick a reason.
Any number, really. Why wouldn't you want to be in the Imperium? Oh, man.
The large mech suits definitely evoke that gun.
Damn.
But the general guard higher-ups kind of create that motif, and they often have accents in the games that they are in. But while Tau are looked at as Gundam mech faction by some, others players enjoy them for the full coalition of aliens. One of my favorite images in Warhammer is this official artwork by Games Workshop. Now, not a single one of these aliens are a faction in Warhammer, and yet they all are different species that do exist in this universe. The Milky Way galaxy is vast.
See, that's interesting too, because yeah, you don't see a lot of the Xenos races in Warhammer, with a lot of them being extinguished by the humans, obviously, by the Imperium. So it is cool that the Tau does kind of represent more Xenos races. Just shows just how vast the galaxy could potentially be if eradication wasn't just a fucking daily thing over there, you know what I'm saying? Because there would realistically be a shitload of alien races potentially that could be around, but you know, we just don't see them ever. But the Tau actually induct them into their society. And you know, it's very, very interesting to see. Again, the Tau, they have some cool things about them. But again, I just feel like a lot of people, you know, just don't enjoy them that much. I feel like, I don't know, a lot of the viewers here on this channel, not enjoyers of the Tau at all, is what I will say.
That do exist in this universe.
Don't tell me great things about them.
The Milky Way galaxy is vast, and while the Imperium and many others exterminate what they can find, the Tau will assimilate those that can be assimilated. The crew and Vespids we already discussed, and the humans and also Votann will join them at times. But you also have the Galg, the Nikasar, the Vorg, the Thraxian, the
Never heard of any of them, yeah.
The Mahdi, and many others. Some of these are just one-off lines, and some are major players in the civilization. The Nikasar are, for lack of a better word, gigantic psychic polar bears with bird-like faces. The Tau have psychic bears. And the fact I haven't seen this is a crime. The Tau as a culture are generally marred by the various issues
don't hear about any of that
would have in an unadvanced galaxy. They do not travel through the warp because of the insane dangers, but instead use a more classic FTL jump.
Interesting.
However, because they aren't going through hell, it makes them a lot slower than many other races. The Imperium might surf through hell and lose a few ships, but they will get there first. Often they will take enormous cannons and weaponry and defeat their foes before they can even close the gap. One of their light walkers carried a weapon of lethal effect. It fired a form of ultra-high velocity projectile. I saw one of our
railgun almost
after being hit by it. There was a small hole punched in either flank. One, the projectile's entry point, the other its exit. The tiny munition had passed through the vehicle with such speed that everything within the hole not welded down had been sucked out through the exit hole, including the crew.
Wow.
We never identified their bodies, for all that remained of them was a red stain upon the ground, extending some 20 meters from the wreck.
Damn.
The fascination of the Tau is that in any other modern-day world, their society would be horrid. Rigid caste systems, corruption, and politicking ethereals, and basically it's the greater good or nothing at all. But in the world of Warhammer, the simple fact that humans are accepted into their sphere should they please already puts them far and above the other races that would murder or eat them.
In terms of good.
This, the existential dread that is the Tau Empire is ever so apparent. Despite being hyper-advanced and welcoming a coalition of aliens, they are the upstarts, and they are painfully outnumbered on all sides. Almost any other faction in the universe, given the right amount of force, can wipe out the Tau Empire from existence. They themselves might not be perfect, but their slight glimmer of hope is exactly that, a glimmer in a dark and crushing galaxy. Of course, nobody dares take the attempt to destroy the Tau Empire, because doing so is an enormous amount of resources, and for the same reason why you don't full send your whole army to one person in a commander game of Magic. You open yourself up to player 2 and 3. But not to say it won't be a struggle. The Tau Empire, when prepared, are a vicious fighting force who might delete your formation before you even see them. But they lack numbers, and in the dark corners of the galaxy, something is coming that is entirely numbers.
Tyranids? Yeah.
There is a cancer eating at
Purple eyes, Gene Stealer.
With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds.
Gotta love the Tyranids, man.
This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale, and all we can try to do is stop the swarms of bioengineer monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salve our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us at all, it must only know us as prey.
That's terrifying, man.
The conflicts of Warhammer 40k are chaotic enough with the sheer volume of...
I gotta say, bro, I really love the Tyranids. The whole like Starship Trooper vibes that goes on with the Tyranids, but also the fact that they're their own thing. Just how they function in like the universe of Warhammer. The fact that there's different hive fleets too. The fact that it's a hive mind. I fucking really like them as a bad guy, you know. And I know they're like generic in terms of like what they are, like obviously kind of like a bug-like swarming race, you know what I'm saying? But I love like just the innovation of them, the fact that they evolve on the spot, how they consume worlds, just how fucked up and freaky that looks, you know. The Gene Stealer cults, the whole 9 yards, man. Tyranids are just fucking terrifying entities. All the stories you hear about the Gene Stealer cults on like planets and stuff like that, we've checked out a few on the channel. Terrifying shit, man.
The conflicts of Warhammer 40k are chaotic enough with the sheer volume of violence that exists in the confines of the Milky Way. However, there is a threat to the galaxy that extends beyond our known galaxy. That is
this shit doesn't care. Yeah.
And cannot be negotiated with. What drew them to the galaxy is unclear. It may have been the light of the Astronomicon itself, like a moth to a flame. It could have been a Xenos device detonated in the Horus Heresy. It could have been that they were done eating the Andromeda galaxy and they have come to take ours, or they might be running from something far worse. Regardless of the why, the where, when it came to the first official contact with these creatures, was the planet of Tyran. This is the site where the Imperium encountered a fleet of these creatures before being utterly torn to shreds. Thus, these creatures became known as the Tyranids. There is plenty of evidence that the Tyranids have been lurking in our galaxy for years beforehand, but this was the first true instance of their presence being fully known.
Because they travel so slow.
In the realm of 40k,
they can also psychically block like communications and stuff.
Able to be reasoned with. They are at their core animals, but not the fun kind of animals. They are the xenomorphs of 40k, and boy are they hungry. They are instinctively hardwired to
no such thing as diplomacy with these things.
Are an unrelenting force due to this. However, just because they don't talk outwardly doesn't mean they don't communicate with one another. The true core of the Tyranids is found in their driving force, the hive mind.
3, 2, 1.
Hot in here by Nelly.
That's what I guessed.
You see, the Tyranids are a collective consciousness that are all connected to a singular embodiment of psychic power. That is utterly incomprehensible to the human mind. To keep this connection there, the Tyranids on the field of battle are
probably the strongest psyker in the galaxy, straight up.
Serving as their Bluetooth connection to the greater hive mind. This allows them to send and receive information about the battle they're in, and it also allows them to adapt to certain situations based off of the information gained. Depending on the enemy, the swarm might be able to develop a new weapon or new tactics so they can get the upper hand. When the synapse connection is cut, they are unable to essentially form a save state and are stranded. The sheer power of the hive mind,
that's a good way of explaining it,
pours from each Tyranid in such a manner that it causes a distortion in the warp itself. A hive fleet's arrival can cause a dark shadow the size of several light years, coined shadow in the warp. This shadow prevents any
you start noticing that shit, you start getting scared. You don't tell the population though, unfortunately.
Shut down due to astropaths being unable to talk. Ships cannot freely enter the warp, and even creatures with a warp sensitivity feel an immense dread due to it. It causes everything to just kind of sit dead, like at a buffet counter waiting for the afternoon meal rush. The Tyranids meander through the galaxy in these gigantic hive fleets that are fueled by bioships. And
there's Behemoth down there.
Birthing pools for Tyranid armies and more ships. Everything about the Tyranids is organic, and to fuel this war machine, the Tyranids consume any and all biomass they come across and absorb it into their respective hive. From the ground to literally the air, the Tyranids strip a planet to a lifeless and uninhabitable hulk. As a means to curb the advancement of the Tyranids, the Imperium has been known to preemptively exterminatus worlds in the path of a hive fleet so that they have less biomass to consume in an attempt to starve them.
Just looking at the location on that map of where Behemoth was, I wonder if if Behemoth ever actually fought the Tau Empire. And if they did, I imagine, like, it's hard to say. Like, I feel like the Tyranids could probably take the Tau out, assuming like things go their way. It's hard to say, but also the Imperium might honestly step in and try to help the Tau to stop the Tyranids. The Tyranids are the biggest fucking threat, hands down. You know, if they evaporate the Tau, what's next? It's the Imperium, right? And they're going to be fucking 10 times as strong as they were before they took down the Tau. Because, you know, the more they eat, the more biomass they obtain, the more Tyranids there are in general, right? When you start losing worlds to Tyranids, bro, it's a bad fucking way. It's a really, really bad way. That goes on for a little bit. It's unstoppable. So I imagine, like, yeah, maybe they straight up helped each other out at times for invasions like that. Somebody let me know. It'd be interesting to know more about that.
Of a hive fleet so that they have less biomass to consume in an attempt to starve them. The Halo method, literally scorched earth tactics by taking everything out of the freezer and lighting it on fire. Outside of the obvious threat and adaptive and unreasonable enemy posed on the field of battle, the most dangerous aspect of the Tyranids comes in the form of their general unpredictability. The Tyranids are external to the Milky Way galaxy itself, and it's unknown where they truly hail from. However, their arrival in the Milky Way is seemingly random and in 3D space, implying quite heavily that Tyranids have the galaxy surrounded in some kind of way. Due to this, you will sometimes see instances of species engaged in a separate conflict, both agree to a temporary truce in order to take the threat. Because regardless of the stakes at hand, the existence of the Tyranids marks the heat death of the galaxy itself. Literally. And all the factions can ultimately agree that the Tyranids themselves act as the biggest threat.
Except maybe the Orcs. The Orcs might love that.
The Tyranid race is truly an unknowable horde and pulls from that horror of the unknown. They, as a faction, are not ones with a large amount of general lore because their entire race is told from the point of view of those being eaten.
Yeah, literally.
Tyranids are called that due to the planet Tyran they destroyed, as we mentioned earlier, and their names are often phrases given to them by their victims. The Swarm Lord, Old One-Eye, the Death Leaper, Von Ryan's Leapers, and so on. Despite the inability to even perceive the vast psychic hive mind of the Tyranids, they are fiercely intelligent. Special poisons and items designed to counter them are adapted in a matter of hours. If you bring light infantry, they create heavy monsters. If you brought weapon emplacements, they spawn little creatures to scour your vents and sewers. Many of you enjoyed the Servitor excerpt from part 1, and so bear with me as I provide you another very long account of a planetary governor whose planet is in the final death throes of the Tyranid menace. This starts about halfway through. It has been many weeks since a handful of us escaped the sinking of the Seafort Divine Anchor via airlift. We have
peaceful music
in this manner because the Tyranids had overwhelmed so much of our world, they no longer appeared to need to continue spawning beasts for aerial supremacy.
Wow,
I shall never
that's
forget
depressing.
What I saw from my craft's portholes. Alien biostructures dominated Huto's surface. Gigantic lumpen barnacles pumped out clouds of matter to further poison the planet alongside pulsating brain-like nodes that resembled lethal fungi. Immense capillary towers stretched high into the poisoned sky. The glistening chitin coating their flanks crawled over by chains of lesser beasts fulfilling some sick alien purpose I cannot know. Digestion pools spread for miles, replacing our once great lakes with reservoirs of bubbling biomatter.
That's disgusting,
Bloated with consumed flesh, vomited their guts into the pools, or threw themselves entirely into the billowous liquid. Amidst the seas of feeder beasts consuming all in their path, we would every so often see an explosion or a burst of fire. Were these heroic final stands by other survivors, or merely abandoned ordnance detonating at random? I will never know. I cannot rejoice in the deaths they inflicted. The biomatter of the dead Xenos was surely recycled by the Xenos regardless in no time at all.
Literally.
Our aircraft ran out of fuel a week ago. Now I stand in the snow, not far from the peak of Mont Saint Hila. I am the only one left that I know. One by one, those with me perished. The slightest cut on a mountain rock resulted in an immediate infection that left the pilot screaming in agony. Her co-pilot fired the shot that ended her torture, and my senior aide threw himself from a ledge. The reality that there was no escape hitting him. I have no idea what happened to my chief medicae. Others were slain by lone beasts the rest of us were unable to kill or drive away. A justly deserved end will soon be mine. I have failed on every possible level. We were not even able to send word. An alien disease has me within its grasp. My limbs are numb, my tongue is dry as sand, my head throbs. Even at these chilled heights, I sweat profusely.
Wow.
From here where I sit, I can see the final death unfold on the planet entrusted to me. Before me is the Radarin Ocean. The water level is visibly dropping.
Wow, that'd be crazy to see.
Even taking our seas. There are enormous beasts.
They eat the whole planet whole,
slowly
water and all,
and immense open maws moving through the sky. I may be at high altitude, but the air is thinner here than it should be. I know enough of mountaineering to know that. They will not even leave our air.
Yeah.
There is an isthmus I can see, upon which is sat one of the Xenos capillary towers. Now I believe I can tell what they are truly for. High up, foul Xenos bioships cling to their flanks like twisted calves at their mother's udders. They are feasting, I am sure, hungrily filling themselves to burst on the hideous gruels that are what remains of my people. I have witnessed the planet's death from sinister start to hideous conclusion. I see the power of our foe, and though I have shown boundless weakness these past months, I do not see how we could ever have won. If this is any—
That just goes to show, I didn't want to pause at all throughout that, but how fucking hopeless it must be, especially again, you can't get communications out, you know no reinforcements are coming for you. You know, the Tyranids, they can adapt to literally everything. They'll suck the air out of the planet. They'll suck the water out of a planet. They'll throw themselves into their biomass pools because they can just reform. As long as they have more biomass, it doesn't matter how many of them you kill because you're going to be biomass in the Tyranid fleet eventually. How hopeless it must be, man. Like, to see all that, you know, and they tried to flee up to the mountains to try to, like, get word out, I'm assuming, try to survive a little bit longer. Yeah, no. It's so fucked up, man. Like, Tyranids are the worst, you know, but they're so cool at the same time.
I do not see how we could ever have
How
won.
could we have ever
If this
won?
is any
Crazy.
sort of good news, it seems that one thing that might be an inadvertent repellent effect on the Tyranids is chaos. Chaos and chaotic energies offer no nourishment to the Tyranids. They cannot eat that. And the presence of rifts and warp storms work as a means to starve out the Tyranid fleet. The Tyranids, of course, are attempting to adapt to this, but it seems that even at the most primal core of the galaxy itself, Chaos agrees that these dinner guests are not welcome in any way, shape, or bioform. In the end, though, the Tyranids
not even Chaos likes the Tyranids.
of the galaxy itself. Despite the goals to conquer the galaxy as a whole, the remainder of the universe may very well be dead and derelict space. Instead of endless worlds and solar systems, it may just be bones and ash. The tendrils of the hive mind have wrapped themselves around the galaxy, and the only thing that's guaranteed is that dinner is served. However, the Tyranids are not simply the unending hordes of bugs. Beyond the more general buffet tactics of the force of the Tyranids, the hive mind has a more secretive and dangerous means of planetary conquest in the form of something a bit more terrestrial. General upheaval.
The Gene Stealers?
Revolution. However, though the idea of a societal revolt for the good of the populace is an admirable thing, these leaders have the nefarious intent of the hive mind itself. These are the downtrodden and the oppressed, the revolutionaries to a better cause, the heralds of the Star Children. These are the...
Yeah, Gene Stealer calls. Yikes. That shit's crazy
body
too.
Of our hive,
Awful.
The flock of the faithful grows. We are guided by our great Father's sacred vision, protected by his loving hands. Within these holy shadows we dwell, while the impure bathe in spire-topped starlight. And what lies between those stars? What sails beyond those distant suns? Shrouded in night, born within that eternal black, our redeemers, our gods, truer than the silent, long-dead emperor, the children of the void. We hear them in our dreams, we feel them in our blood. They call and we will answer. We will rise and claim the engines of labor that have bound us in servitude. This world will burn. It will be cleansed, purified, made ready, and the heavens will deliver our reward. The ground zero of a Gene Stealer cult comes in the form of the Gene Stealer itself. Deep In the depths of a planet, a Genestealer acts as almost an advanced recon unit for the Tyranids, and were the first Tyranid units encountered by the Imperium itself long before the first Hive Fleet made its presence known. Unlike the Tyranids that can only reproduce through the birthing pools in the fleet, a Genestealer reproduces via the Big Smooch. The Genestealer kiss is essentially what the facehugger in Alien does. It attaches to a victim and releases an embryo. However, instead of a chest burster, the embryo alters the genetic makeup of the host itself, turning it into the primary conductor of a localized version of the hive mind known as the brood mind. Any offspring that this host produces is known as a Genestealer hybrid, and the host assures their survival to continue to reproduce. The first few generations of a Genestealer hybrid look more like the Genestealer itself, which in our current reality would be terrifying.
Yeah.
But considering how the vast majority of humanity is a little mutated in 40k, it doesn't stand out as much as it should. As the generations continue, the mutations and the general alien look is almost entirely phased out, and the resulting hybrids look almost identical to the species that they once were. Due to the size of most worlds, the makings of a Genestealer cult can exist almost entirely in secret, generation after generation. And
that's the terrifying thing too, is like they, you know, a few generations after the fact, you can't tell what's a Genestealer and what isn't. So it's like this silent, malignant tumor that's growing on a world. And the fuck thing is too, is like eventually when it does sprout, there's going to be a lot of like kids that are straight up Genestealers, you know what I mean, that will straight up turn into these hybrid monsters before your eyes, and the parents might not even have any idea that it's happening. You know, it's so fucked up. You know, the idea behind Genestealers, what exactly that implies, we've seen a little bit of it on the channel, man. It's wild shit, absolutely crazy shit.
Can exist almost entirely in secret, generation after generation. After a certain period of time, those hybrids will make their way into generalized society. Still connected to the mind of the Genestealer itself, the hybrids operate with the express goal of gaining power within society itself in a political and religious sense. Most of the time, they will present themselves as revolutionaries, looking for the betterment of the population. And honestly, it sounds great for a lot of the folks on the planet. By the people, for the people. As they expand more openly, the crossbreeding continues until all aspects of the planet's society is infiltrated. However, all bets are off when a hive fleet comes close enough. When a Tyranid hive fleet gets close enough to a planet, the brood mind activates essentially an endgame scenario. The once political and religious leaders become bloodthirsty fanatics that work to finalize the collapse of society and the death of those who oppose them. But to those in the brood mind, the god they believe in is coming, and this is holy justice and vindication for their religious and political beliefs. As the hive arrives, the planet is essentially ripe for the taking. The original Genestealer pieces out to the next world or is reabsorbed for deployment elsewhere, and the Tyranids begin to take the planet for themselves. The cultists sing praises and holy songs as the Tyranids begin to eat everything up in kind of a meet the pyro sense of religious delusion. But as they are harvested, some of them are snapped back to reality, oops, there goes gravity, before they are thrown into the biomass soup.
Yikes.
For a fleeting second, they see that this was all a ruse to consume the world and that their false gods were a bunch of hungry bugs. The cultists essentially put the checkerboard dining cloth on the table for them and invited them for a feast.
But it's so crazy that the Tyranids are able to evolve in that way to create an entity that can infiltrate society in such a way, and that can like actually like influence like top leaders that can assimilate into that society and influence top leaders or eventually just replace them outright. It's kind of like, what's that movie called? World's End, you know, part of the Cornetto series. It's kind of like World's End, where they like, you know, the whole like idea of robots and stuff like that. But obviously in this, it's a Genestealer, right? A Tyranid Genestealer. Kind of like that, man. It's crazy shit, and it's super fucking scary to think about. Because yeah, like this cult could be on a planet for decades before the Tyranids even show up. You know, it could just be growing, gaining influence over time. Yeah, man. Terrifying shit, and by time you know, it's way too late to do anything about it.
Essentially put the checkerboard dining cloth on the table for them and invited them for a feast.
Yeah.
Due to the constant redeployment of Genestealers, there are known cults that pop up across the Imperium itself, Some of the more well-known ones are the Cult of the Bladed Cog or the Rusted Claw, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different cults that keep popping up all over the galaxy as the Gene Stealers spread. And due to their covert means taking over the planet, they are not generally viewed to be a threat until it is far too late. And due to the know-how of Gene Stealers, they tend to be predatory to those in the lower classes of a given planet. The Gene Stealer cults overall have really come into their own, commercially and artistically. They have very much embraced the revolutionaries aesthetic and crafted a fascinating method in doing so. It's this great combination of this pseudo-Marxist Bolshevik uprising mixed with the hills have eyes in the populace. What's particularly enjoyable about their uprising is that often from their point of view,
Red Revolution, quite literally,
extremely justified. Most of the members of the GSC are the extremely impoverished and menial laborers of the Imperium, who honestly wouldn't need an alien presence to provide
that scared me a little bit
on reasons to revolt. Their weapons are all makeshift and often involve things like mining lasers, drilling saws, demolition charges, giant stop signs. Their political machinations work quite well.
They use everything.
As the cult ends up being really good at assassination, especially when you have a third arm holding a pistol beneath all those robes.
Yeah.
They're a faction rife with fascination and culture, and their plans are generations in the making, to the end goal of being thrown right back into the soup by the star children they prepared the world for. And those are the threats to the galaxy now. The degradation of almost every species is now behest by the Tyranid menace, and all of the infighting between each and every single one of them will be their undoing. The world of Warhammer is a bleak and horrendous one, and that is in its own right the charm. It is so large,
truly
so
it
vast,
is
so absolutely horrendous and insane, and yet is treated with 100% severity and seriousness. In the beginning of part 1, I gave you an abridged and different opening to the Warhammer world, the grim darkness of the far future, and I leave you with this part 2 with the full quote itself. It is the 41st millennia. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne.
Classic quote.
He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day so that he may never truly die. Yet even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets across the demon-infested miasma.
Baller quote here.
The only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest amongst his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard, and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition, and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name only a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching.
Classic quote.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Wow. Awesome job, Bricky. Holy shit. What a fantastic video, guys. That was every single Warhammer 40k faction explained, re-explained, I should say, part 2 by Bricky. Great job on that video, man. I know this probably took him a long time to put together, probably took his team a long time to put together too. That was phenomenal. Great job and a great update on his original series, I have to say. Went over everything in a very, very concise manner, kept it humorous, but also kept it lore-based still. Very much, you know, to the point, not giving away anything, you know, not giving any spoilers, but you know, using it as kind of a stepping stone to get into the setting. Does a phenomenal job at that. Bricky has always been really good at that. And again, he, you know, I know you guys love his content. I love his content too. And his content is some of this first stuff that you know, kind of brought me into the spotlight. So I really want to give credence to him and you know, give him the credit he deserves for sure. And he deserves all the success. And I know those original Warhammer videos he made, that's kind of what blew up his channel back in the day as well. And I can see why. You know, it's a hobby that so many people love, that so many people can get into. I just feel like you have to look past a lot of the surface level stuff and like dive into it a little bit more, and you do realize just how much is going on in Warhammer 40k, just how much there is for everybody in there. But no, what a phenomenal video, guys. I obviously had to leave a like on that one. I'm already subscribed, so if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe for more content from me, and of course leave your recommendations down in the comments below what you guys want to see next. It's awesome to watch this with you guys. And yeah, big thank you to all of our members, all of our Hastati and our Principes, Dagenhart and Hobbit, and our Praefectus Fear. I appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content from you guys every single day, or damn near every single day. Obviously the YouTube monetization system, you know, it takes some time to upload some stuff at times, but I try my best for you guys. Obviously this is kind of like, you know, my full-time job at the moment now, in a sense, you know. It's not it doesn't pay the bills by any means, but it's something I'm doing, and I appreciate all the support, guys, on the channel, and to all of my members, of course. You guys really do mean a lot to me. But yeah, without any further delay, guys, this has of course been Centurion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.